Hello, everybody. If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer, and that must mean it's time for another episode of Warhammer Weekly. Joining me, as always, my co-host Tom. What's up, brother? How you doing?
Hello, friends.
Also joining us this week, he's back. He's back again. Our title holder, probably, maybe still for longest show. I don't know. I think it doesn't really matter. The Slaanesh show is the longest, but at any rate, it's Tyler. How you doing, buddy?
Good to be with you fellas once again. I think Paul Conti still has me beat in the score, but
he's got you beat on appearances. Yes, that is true.
Yeah, so I've got to work on that.
But that's all right. That's all right. We'll see what we can do. We're going to be bringing in some new folks here too. There's a lot of people out there that I want to get on. So we're going to expand our world. Not that I mind, Tyler. I'd have you on all the time.
Yeah, well, definitely got to diversify that portfolio. Yeah, get some new folks. Some people, who actually are collecting armies right now, apart from your current guest.
Well, my current guest has probably played more Warhammer than my co-host. So
that's probably true.
Oh,
yeah.
Come on now. I have games scheduled this weekend.
Well, good for you. I'm just saying, Tyler's out there getting it done on TTS. We'll be talking about TTS in a few weeks.
That's not real Warhammer.
It's Warhammer.
I said it.
Heard that a lot over the last year.
No, we can save that. We can save that. All right. At any rate, this week we're going to be talking about Daughters of Khaine and what that army looks like after its changes from Broken Realms Morathi. Now, we were hoping to have the FAQ by the time we came to have this discussion. When we scheduled it out, I was like, well, there's no way we won't have the FAQ by this point in time.
Of course we'll have it.
That would be ridiculous. We'll easily have it. Haha. Well,
joke's on us.
Yeah, life's funny sometimes. But, spoiler of a little news item as we get into the news here. Obviously, they did at least confirm the FAQ is coming when they put up the 40K item. They said, Age of Sigmar people, don't worry, your FAQ is coming in a few weeks by the end of the month. The general impression is sometime in January. So, okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's been this late before because it was almost LVO time frame that we got it 1 year. And that's where we're at. Like we're swiftly approaching that. Like, so in another week and a half or so, it would have been when LVO was. So That's not too surprising. So, but we do have a exciting rumor engine.
It's a lizard. It's a little skink. It's a skink in the term of not the way we use skink in the game, but skink in the term that skink is really applied in the real world.
For everyone else in the world. So what is this?
I have no idea. This is that frustrating type of rumor engine that I despise. That is exactly what it is, right? It is
this is the kind I love. You know what it is, but you have no idea what it is.
Yeah, see, these are the ones that drive me crazy because I'm like, yep, that's a tiny lizard on something. Okay. Yeah. Any. Tom, you want to go ahead and take a wild swing at this one?
I think it's a terrain piece.
Okay.
I think, in fact, that it is our much desired Realm of Life bundle.
Okay.
So there's a terrain box coming that's Realm of Life. That's what I'm going to hypothesize.
Okay. I won't counter that at all. Seems just as likely as anything else. Seriously, this is, who knows? It's a thing with a lizard crawling on it. Okay?
Yeah.
Speaking of lizards, let's talk about the real news from this week that had to do with lizards, which is boom! That's right. This is the real lizard news. The Seraphon warband for Underworlds. That's the lizards we want to be talking about.
I mean, whatever. It's fine.
So the question that every guest, I'm sure, is asking you, Vince, on every show, is there no way that the guest can see what you're talking about?
That you will. It's like 30 seconds behind. So if you're watching live there, it just caught up.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
You have to just open a window. Hey, I have to too every week. I watch our show live, hoping that I'll actually get to see the images that Vince shows everyone else.
This is the way it works, folks. I don't know what to tell you. Welcome to the world of streaming. Okay, this is what everybody does.
I'm good now.
All right, excellent. So yes, we finally saw this Seraphon warband for Underworlds. That's why I'll vamp for a few seconds, by the way, whenever I change images to give it time to hopefully catch up so then you guys can react. See, there's a method here. I am aware of the delay. Behind the
We're not
scenes.
amateurs, I promise.
Yeah. These guys look fantastic. I think these dudes are sweet. The only one I really don't like, honestly, is the Saurus.
Really? I love that dude. I love that. I saw him, I was like, I like him.
Yeah, I don't like the pose. He feels very, like, legitimately,
I don't like
he feels like he's squatting.
Maybe he is. I don't like the chameleon skink.
Really?
What?
That's
insanity.
Yeah, it's insanity.
It's like he's just so like static, and so
he's supposed to be. They're very static things. They just like move one arm. Haven't you seen them out in the wild? They just like.
He looks like he's taken a hit of something.
Yeah, that's chameleon skinks.
I don't know. Like, that's the one that I don't like. I like the Saurus.
Okay.
The Saurus, he's like, I got you for 5 minutes. Like, that dude is ready.
Either that or he's constipated, but sure. One of these two things is happening.
Yeah.
My dog is usually in a similar pose after it gets into the trash.
Yeah. I mean, skanks are categorical abominations, so I can't say too much about this. I mean, I can appreciate the dude hold up the whatever that is he's
like
holding
the
up there.
The spear and shield guy.
Yeah, I can appreciate what he's doing, but no, we need to get this off the screen as quickly as possible.
I appreciate that we got every loadout. Right, that we've got like the buckler and club, buckler and spear, or like blowpipe and little whatever club or whatever it is. So I like that they gave all the loadouts. I like the chameleon. I think the boss is truly boss.
Sure.
That guy is amazing with his thermal detonator, threatening Jabba the Hutt.
Yes, but again, how can you beat the come at, as Mike said, the come at me bro Saurus?
I'm sorry. Maybe it's just, you know what? Here's what I'll grant. For the Saurus, perhaps it's just the angle that they decided to set him at for this picture. It could very well be. They oftentimes do not take pictures of their models at the best angles. So, like, when I see a 360 view, you know, fine. It could be different. The skinkies are amazing. Their muscle structure so clean. The little, like, the delicacy around their jaws and stuff is so much better defined than the previous version, like the detail in their jaws. The chief with his like tongue going like like that's great. That's great. Everything about this is great. So except for constipated Saurus.
So only a year late.
Sure. But hey, yeah, we first saw the first rumor engines for this back in like March of last year.
Oh wow. I didn't realize it'd been that
long.
Right,
the month after the book dropped.
Sure. But at any rate, it's a cool warband, and I really dig it. And as cool as this was, and by the way, this is cool. I love that like blowpipe skink is actually like puffing out his cheeks to blow the blowpipe dart.
Sure.
All of that's great. Feather Dude is great with his spear arm up in the air. All of this is truly wonderful. But the best thing about this article had nothing to do with Seraphon, and in fact had everything to do with this guy.
More vampirates.
That's right. Answer. That's right. That's what I mean, like, let's face it, but this is what we're all here for. Look, I know Seraphon people. I know you're excited about your Seraphon warband. I know you are. But this will be the shortest celebration of a warband ever, because this is like being a really good opening act, but you're opening for like the Stones at their height, or the Beatles, or like whatever. Pick your poison.
It's like, hey, great stock models, bro.
Right. Like, now let's see the real things. Like, this is gonna like this. This is no competition. Just this silhouette is more exciting to me than that entire warband I just saw.
True story.
Yeah.
March, they said, for this the vampire.
Yep.
Nice. Yep. Cool. All right.
We'll probably see it in February, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine probably February is when they'll preview it. Yeah, because they seemed like clearly this one ran a month ahead. So let's call it February at the
no.
latest.
I would anticipate a preview show at the end of this month.
Sure. If they do an LVO replacement preview show, yes.
Yeah.
And AOS Macbeth sounds awesome, by the by. Somebody said it looks like a Shakespearean actor pose. Coach said that. And yes, I would. I mean, I have zero problem with that. Absolutely. So,
GW, if you're watching, get a hold of Vince and I. We'll do a reaction video for you if you want to like show us a video ahead of time, and you can use that for your promo.
Sure. Just us going like. In fact, just screen cap that. I guess we just gave the game away. You don't even need to actually now do anything.
Yeah.
Just zoom in.
You'll just edit it in, and we won't actually get to see the model.
Another opportunity missed. We screwed it up again. Darn it. Very excited for this, obviously.
Yep.
I hope we see these guys soonish. Either, yes, an LVO preview or February is when we'll see them. February. Sorry. So, there you go.
I'm excited. Like, they're coming. Which is really a bummer because I just dropped a bunch of money on KO. So
it's not a bummer because you've got time. Like realistically, this Underworld's Warband is going to precede whatever we get for Death by probably at least a month, maybe two. Right? Given the production slowdown. So so realistically, I mean, you've got time, buddy. You know what I'm saying? Like you've got probably 3 months, 4 months, 5 months before you're talking about having that hot death action in your hands. So, so you can knock out that KO. All right.
Could I get the TLDR version of the Warhammer Weekly Death chat from a week or two ago that I still need to catch up on?
We think there is a new Death Army coming April or May, likely May. My money would be on May. It'll be a reasonably sized Death release. We will get new Blood Knights. I'm standing behind this. I've stood behind this for like months now. I've made this call. I refuse to move an inch. I am hoping there will be a Vampirates section within it with like a new Mortarch, somebody like a Mortarch of the Abyss, like a Luther Harkon type of figure. Hopefully not him, to be honest. Like, leave some things dead and behind in the old world, but if it's him, I'm not going to complain. Like, he's a cool enough dude. But at any rate, we'll see a bunch of resculpts of the other parts of the line beyond just vampires. Other death stuff.
Yeah. Okay. In a perfect world, it's a broader vampire kind of centric release with a small corner carved out for Vampirates. More likely what it is that this warband will be in the book as a Vampirate warband with no additional Vampirates. That's what I'm hoping is not true, but that's probably what's true. I'm mentally preparing myself for that.
Sure.
And then hoping it'll surprise me.
So because of the, somebody gave a really interesting comment to one of the death shows we did from a couple weeks back that I read today, and I don't remember who it was, so if it was you, I apologize. If you're watching right now, feel free to drop it in the comments. But they brought up the background story that Van Brecht, so our hero from Broken Realms Marathi, right? His sister is a vampire. Okay, and it's like well, they never directly say that she's Van Brecht's sister, but her last name is like, it's something Van Brecht. So it's clearly meant to be related. And she like woke up it was in a book I didn't read, so I'm very poorly recounting this story, and I apologize. But there you go. KC said it. Yeah, all right. Rock on, KC. He is in the chat. Okay, so he can feel free to supplement anything I get wrong here, because I'm sure I'll get something wrong. But he woke up like some kind of undead king. She woke up, sorry. Some undead kings. Nagash got all pissed off to protect her family and her village or something. And Nagash showed up and was all pissed off. Tamara von Brecht. Thank you very much, Casey. And Nagash shows up and he's like, hey, I didn't say you could wake those people up. She was like a necromancer or whatever, right? I didn't say you could wake those people up. You feel so important you want to protect your people? Do you think that's such an important thing for you? Fine. I'll kill you all and I'll raise you all. You're a vampire now and you're charged to forever protect these people. And she goes and like sails off at the end.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And so there you go. Maybe it's her. Oh, who said it's his great-grandmother? Okay, sure. There you go. So related to him in some way. That's neat. So the point is that that'd be a neat tie-in. And if she could be the warband person.
Right.
Right? Because we know there's like the leader of the warband in the punch out from the preview seems to be a female vampire. It'd be cool if it was like Tamara von Brecht, right? Or whatever. I had never read this story. Apparently it was like the Nagash focused book that this happens in.
Okay.
So, That would
Guess
also
what?
explain maybe it was her that went and bailed him out of jail, right? Like
Oh, that's a good call.
at the end of that. So
Interesting.
because she's a
Yeah.
big, powerful vampire. So that's full shout out. That was not me who found that. I have not read that book. That was KC. He's in the chat. When he laid out this story in the comments, I was like, oh my god, like that's pretty. That seems pretty accurate. Like that just feels too on the nose.
Yeah, a little bit too much on the nose.
Like we got the hint back in the Shadespire thing that they like. If you were reading closely, you knew when Sigvald's soul was found, right? Because they mentioned the KO team in Shadespire or whatever that found him. Yeah. Found they didn't say found Sigvald. They said found the most vain being in the mortal realms, right? And they abscond with him, and then he disappears. So like, if they will sometimes pick up these kind of lore bits. Right. So, it would be really neat if the vampirate that we get here is Tamara von Brecht or something, and is that story given figures, and the other members of the warband are like her family that she's still protecting or whatever, or something like that. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. Could be something brand new, but I thought that was an amazingly cool story.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you guys cover whether you think that we're going to get a lot of the existing kits removed? And in terms of, we're going to get an LON 2.0 that has with vampires?
Yeah, I mean, my money is we will get an LON 2.0. I do think we'll see a couple kits go. And I do think we'll also get new units. Like, not just resculpts. I think we will get complete, like, Blood Knights are a resculpt. Who knows what else they remake. But my money's on, like, werewolves or flesh golems or mummies or some other classic gothic horror trope that we don't have in the army yet, right? I don't know which one of those, but something like that.
I don't inherently disagree with that, but I think some of the stuff is just going to get deep sixed. Like Night Haunt's going to be out of that book. And
not
so,
retired, by the way, is what he's saying. He just means you can't.
No, but
you can ally maybe, but not have it as part of your army. Yeah.
Right, because like it'll be condensed back around the vampire core of Soulblight and that kind of thing. Because even the 2/3 of the legions, well, I guess technically Nagash had his own legion. Like, I wouldn't be surprised, let me say it this way, if Nagash gets pulled out completely as this overarching thing, and it focuses on like Legion of Blood, Legion of Night, and some other type of legion, and they may not even be called Legions of Nagash anymore, right?
Sure.
Like that, but its focuses on like this vampire aristocracy leadership core, right? And then their minions.
Yeah.
That wouldn't surprise me. That wouldn't surprise me at all.
Nice.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Cool.
So we'll see what happens. All right. So we have one more piece of news, I believe. One more pseudo small piece of news.
A financial report rolled in.
Yes.
And apparently GW is doing well.
Yes, they are now a $3.6 billion company. That's very big, just so we're all clear. Okay.
Yep.
It's not, it's not
Wizards of the Coast big.
No, it's not. Certainly there are many bigger companies, but $3.6 billion is a massive multinational company.
Yep.
Like
third most successful in the UK.
FTSE. Probably, yes. It traditionally has performed very well in the FTSE, yes. And the my hope would be that this finally puts to bed the concept that tournament players matter at all.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. In a year without tournaments, now given they did release a new version of 40K, right? Which is that is nitrous getting injected into the fuel supply, right?
Yeah.
So at any rate, there's 0 tournaments going on. The competitive scene is basically non-existent out for most of the year outside of Australia and New Zealand, where they've mostly still been able to continue having tournaments quite often, right?
And on computers.
And and on computers. Yes, that should say that. No, that's true. But I mean, my point is that doesn't require the sale of figs. There's been plenty of TTS tournaments. 0 figs were sold for TTS tournaments. Let me let you know that secret. Okay, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
So, At any rate, but yet they had their highest sales numbers ever by a very vast margin. Right?
Well, also everybody in the world was locked in their house.
Sure. There's
So,
lots of reasons.
That helps hobby.
There's a complex story here, okay, for
Yeah.
sure. I don't want to oversimplify. Like
Yeah.
a lot of people turned into hobby. A lot of people probably bought stuff as retail therapy. A lot of people might have had more time to hobby. A lot of people might have taken this opportunity to sit down and paint. People who do travel to tournaments might have had disposable income they weren't using to spend on travel and hotels to go buy figs, right? So like it's, there is a complicated tapestry here. But my point is that in a game where almost no one was able to play games, they were still very successful. Their concept has always been that they are successful if they make the coolest models.
Right.
And that the rules are important, but they are secondary. Everybody tends to see this as like some kind of light switch binomial, like if models are important, then rules don't matter at all. That's not ever been their theory. But they know that what butters their bread is the models first and foremost. And I think this year, if nothing else, is quite a correlating proof point of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I just thought that was interesting. There was lots of cool stuff in there. The CEO made a statement that they are going to continue on the path that they feel is appropriate and not bow to like outside. I'm very much paraphrasing, so please do read his statement. Don't take my word exactly for it, but the paraphrase was something to the effect of like, we're not going to bow to outside investors and market pressures or something like that. I mean, I'm very much putting more of a flourish on that than I'm sure he did, although he does talk in pretty plain language in his introduction. The point being is I was actually happy to hear that. I think that is hedging on his part, because investors need to realize that next year the numbers could be down, and that wouldn't actually be a negative. Like the sort of permanent growth requirement in a year where they don't release a new edition of 40K and have an Indominus box set and relaunch the entire Space Marine line, it's hard,
Yeah, absolutely.
So he could just be hedging for investors because they're not going to understand that nuance.
Expectations.
Yeah.
Right.
So
that's good.
They could release like 4 just bangers of AOS armies next year. Like I'm talking new stuff or vast resculpts, right? 4 just bangers that we're all like, we're doing shows, we're shouting from the rooftops, people are losing their minds. And then we could like also completely redo, I don't know, like Craft World Eldar or something, and it wouldn't come close to touching like Indominus plus redoing the entire Space Marine line, right? There's just not the same player base there. So, anyways, it was cool. Check out the financial statement if you want to see more.
It certainly does seem that they've been sitting on a gold mine though, with Craft World Eldar in particular, for about 20 years with some of those sculpts. I mean, there's so many players that have been waiting forever for that line to get updated.
Yeah, it's funny because so many of the sculpts, especially like the vehicle stuff, actually holds up really well.
Really? Yeah, they do. Yeah, they look pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, people still paint those vehicles all the time and put them in competitions and stuff because they're just amazing, like the Eldar vehicles in general. But a lot of the troops in the Craft World Eldar are showing their age. But this isn't a 40K show, so yes, they could do a great job. From the rumor engines, though, we're going to get orcs first, so who knows. Anything else news-wise? I think that's it, right, Tom?
Yeah, I think that's it.
All right, then I am marking the time as we go to our pick of the week. All right. Tyler.
You guys better go first because I'm going to do my point of privilege as usual on this show, too.
That's fine. Tom, you go ahead.
Get ready, Vince.
This week, Darren Watson has a blog with the Honest Wargamer where he talks tactics, and recently he's been doing interviews and stuff. And he did a wonderful interview with Adam Trunzo. If you all don't know Adam, it is worth checking him out. He's a wonderful gamer. He's a gem of a person. He does just out of this world hobby. He's on Twitter. And obviously all this, but Darren did an interview with Adam, and just talking about his hobby. And Adam is a wonderfully competitive player as well. He in fact is the one that like shut me down at that last ACON on table 2 in the last game.
Sure.
Stopped me from winning. But he's a great gamer, fantastic. He does just stunning, beautiful hobby. And it's just a wonderful interview with him. I love seeing him get some limelight, and so check it out. Check out the interview. So we'll have the link down below.
Nice. I will link that down there. I've got 2 this week, but I'll be quick with mine. Number 1, our buddy Hooves of Doom, who's in the chat, his wonderful channel. He has a great new video talking about humans' place in AOS and how do you make humans interesting in the mortal realms. And I fully support what he eventually comes to. It's interesting because he talks about how they tried to do it in 40K and kind of where that didn't work in the line and how we could probably circumvent that in the mortal realms. And I completely support it. Love the video. Great video. I'll link it down below. Option number 2, Crazy Horse, Mr. Anthony Polcastro, who's in the chat. He has a 3D printing terrain machine, and he has a Etsy shop set up where he is selling 3D terrain for people. So I will link his shop down below. You can go there, check it out. He supplied all of the terrain for Nova, which is incredible. He has a bunch of terrain that we will have at the next. What did I just say? Did I say Nova? Sorry. He supplied all the terrain for NashCon, which is incredible. Yeah.
Right.
And David did a great job painting it. He has also supplied a bunch of terrain to Nova, which we haven't got to use yet because, this last year sucked. But hopefully this year will be better and we'll all get to see it. So there we go. You can now also check that out too.
I did not realize that he had an Etsy shop. So
I believe he just started it like today or yesterday or very recently. So I'll link the Etsy shop down below. Good dude.
He is he's working on a project for myself right now.
Oh, very nice.
That's very cool.
All right, Tyler, take us away.
All right, here we go. Let's do it quickly. Doom and Darkness, better known as Smiles and Rainbows among his close friends. New bat rep, Zinch versus Doc. Awesome bat rep. It's going to cover one of the lists that we'll feature here tonight. Kron running Cobra Kai, Xanthar Kai, all snakes all the time. Excellent battle report. I've been watching a lot of AOS Coach talking series. LRO with Marty Orlando was really good. And of course, Chuck did a couple with Coach recently on Doc. Check those out. Cubic Shenanigans podcast. They did an amazing episode covering Sun Tzu's The Art of War through the lens of AOS. And
Love it.
Rocked.
First, I use the lessons all the time.
It was really good. Dan has a military background, and so Dan and Brendan had a fascinating conversation in relation to that book. Season of War is an amazing battle report channel that's started by a guy named Jordan Duncan. Folks may have seen him on Twitter. He's a Canadian, awesome dude. He is pumping out, I think, some of the best bat rep content. So Season of War, definitely check that out. And then finally, a bat rep channel that's not that well known is called a Small Town Geek. Small Town Geek, relatively new, but they've been doing some really cool reports. So I just want to give them a shout out as well. And I think that's it.
Your Tyler makes up for all the shows he's not on by
It's getting it all. I didn't like 2 minutes.
No, that was fantastic. It was great. All of that will be linked below. All of it. All of that. Good stuff. Yes, I mean what Tyler just showed is how amazing this community is and how many people are making fantastic content. So I will link it all down below. As to Jose said, can you link it in the chat? I can't directly. Other people can't link into a YouTube chat, but they will all be linked down in the description. The only reason I can't is because I have to do other things and run the show, so I can't print them all in there real quick. But I promise you, they will be down in the description, so you can reference down there. Final bit of thing I want to mention before we go to hobby time is just that the survey will be closing tonight. So if you have not yet completed the negative play experience survey, please do so. We've gotten a good number of responses, but obviously it's a little more complicated survey, so we're a little below where the previous one was. I'm happy with what we've got, but I'd love to have more. The results are going to be very, very interesting. It's going to take me a little while to go through all of the data and put it into something that is reasonable. But we'll do that show in a few weeks. If you have not yet filled out the survey, do so. The link is down in the description right now. That is already preloaded, so you can check that out. Ebert says, "Who were the Sun Tzu guys?" Cubic Shenanigans.
Yeah.
Yes, there you go. Cubic like a cube, and shenanigans like the thing that you will get pistol whipped for if you mention it one more time. So there we go. Okay.
Yeah, and that's a podcast.
Yes, it is a podcast.
Yeah.
All right. So with that, let's turn to some hobby time. All right, hobby time. So, Tyler, what would you like to talk about for your hobby time?
I've got more links to share. No, I'm joking. Absolutely, as usual, broken record. I don't pay attention to much of that. I wanted to give a few shout outs to some cool hobby that's going on at TTS.
Sure.
So there were two amazing tournament formats. One by Owen Jackson, the Fat Middle, named after our own Vince, or maybe Tom, you came up with that, and Vince took credit for it, as he likes to do.
We had this discussion of who among us created it, because it was the three of us on a show when we first rolled it out. I'd have to go back and watch the show, so I'm taking it. It was me.
I think it was you.
In all honesty, I think it was Vince.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah. Anyway, so Owen's been doing this incredible series called Hammer Time on TTS about every other weekend on a Saturday. He does an event, 40, 50, 60 players, and he did one on the Fat Middle. So he removed I'm not sure how he determined it, but in his view, the top
TTS
five performing
rankings is how he determined it. 1,200 games of TTS rankings.
Oh, okay, awesome, cool. So yeah, I think Lumineth was probably out of there. Seraphon was out of there. And then, whatever was left in the field, that was what you could run. And it was led to some incredible lists we put together. So maybe we can include a link to, if anyone's interested, some of those lists. And then the second format was Adam Mumford. He did a Secret Santa event over the holiday with Darren Watson. And so Darren and Adam created various lists, sort of themed, wild list. And you would randomly get assigned one of these lists that you'd have to play in a 3-round event. I think you had a way that you could maybe take a pass and get another random one. Like you had one chance to get a different list, but it was really cool. Again, what kind of list they came up with. So kind of just something a little bit different. And then there was 2 introductions to TTS. One by Priority Roll podcast that with Dan, really good. Mark Brooks is on the show. Mark has done really well a lot of TTS events. And then Rob with Honest Wargamer, he did an intro this week as well on YouTube. So yeah, if folks are curious, I mean, there's a lot of resources out there nowadays you can check out in terms of how to get going on TTS.
Yeah, absolutely. And that Secret Santa event was kind of the perfect thing. To me, that's actually using TTS in the best possible way, because it's the kind of thing you couldn't really do in real life, right? Because they just randomly made lists. Well, not randomly. I mean, they made lists. They were all, randomly is the wrong word. They made lists that they thought would be fun and interesting and just different to play. Yeah, and you got the list the day before. So 24 hours before game 1, you got the list. So you had a day to look into it, learn what the units did and stuff like that. Again, you couldn't do that type of thing in real life because you don't know what figs people have and stuff like that, right?
Right.
But in TTS, where it's just, assets that are getting dropped in, you can do it. Yeah. And it was really, really fun to watch all these weird, crazy lists battle it out. So it was cool.
Yeah, so here's some quick examples. So we've got, I'm looking at 10 by 10 units of 10 Shadow Warriors with an Assassin, Wrathicane, and a Shadow Queen, and a unit of 20 Heart Renders, and a Spell Portal thrown in. Or we've seen the Cockatrice list, the Cockatrice Spam, that was one. A list with 3 Soul Grinders and
running like the Iron Demon or whatever battalion. Yeah.
Demon Steel Contingent.
There you go. Yeah.
Completely off. Yeah, it's really. I found the document amazing. Just in terms of some of the lists that you've seen. Obviously, Darren in particular is pretty well known for, his inventiveness in terms of list writing. But yeah, really cool.
Nice. All right, Tom, your hobby time. I think I'm supposed to bring up pictures here, so that's fine. I'll bring up your pictures.
I did hobby, and so you know what? I wanted to show off some of my hobby this week.
So we're starting, Tom, with the unpainted guys, your newest conversion.
Oh, boo.
Well, that's the order you sent them in. Learn how to send pictures.
I hate you. Okay. So this is a new thing that I did this week was I converted over a bunch of like I had Bugmans and I needed something to do with Bugmans. And so Bugman. And so I saw somebody had done some like Thunderer conversions and I got thinking about like Bugman. He used to have a unit of Rangers.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna make Bugman's Rangers. And so I made a Thunderer unit of Bugman stuff. All once I get these guys like all done up and painted up, I will have a full like 360 view of these guys because like a lot of bit work went into these gentlemen because of just like trying to get all of the everything. Yeah, so it's going to be a mixed weapons unit of Bugmans. I have 5 more Thunderers that I may do conversions on. But these use torsos from like Endrinrigger because like it's interesting if you actually look at Bugman, like I thought he was wearing a Thunderer outfit, but when I got to looking at it, he actually has the headrest of an Endrinrigger.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so because of that, I had 3 Endrinrigger bodies. So then I did like some of those, and then like the munitions explosives guy that has the mortar. I did him in like an Arcanaut thing because he had a bunch of explosives on him already. And so anyway, so I'll have like full views of these guys. I've done 5. I may do a unit of 10. So we'll see. And if I get really anxious, I'll do the Rum Runner frigate. They're named frigate for my additional frigate that I'm going to paint up. So
very nice.
Yeah, so I'm working on these guys. I thought it would be I had a bunch of extra Thunderers and a bunch of extra bits. And so I decided to explore, took some inspiration from the Bugman model itself and made out a whole unit. So
very nice. All right, your next one is going to be your converted. So from the nicest, coolest narrative thing to the filthiest, most awful thing. Tom, explain what these little weird depth charges that are sitting on the screen right now. What are these 3 strange depth charges?
Oh, that's my Warp Lightning Vortex. Yeah. So that's what happens when you call in an airstrike, and that's what arrives. So I'm dropping bombs, and when the book first dropped and I began looking, I stumbled upon these bits in the 40K stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, this is it. This is what I need. But it didn't have enough of the canisters, so like the long canisters were part of it. So I went and got a bunch of the like dynamite stick things from the rest of the Endrinrigger units and filled that in, and then got some of the bombs from the Iron Drake units and attached that in, and then added some of the Sky Mines from the Sky Wardens. So that's my Warp Lightning Vortex. They're ready to, and it's thematic. Like you got to call in the airstrike, right?
Sure. It's thematic. This awful spell. I hope this becomes 140 points post the FAQ, Tom.
Well, exactly. Yeah, you know what's going to happen, Tom. It's going to be useless in a week or 2.
It's fine. You know what? I'm okay with that.
It looks great.
I have some wonderful bombs.
That's right.
And if nothing else, they're on 32 mil, or no, those are on 40. Shoot. As I say, they're on 32 mils. I'll use them as like substitutes for Thunderers or something.
Sure.
I'll rip them off and put them on 32s.
Interesting objective markers for the game.
Right, indeed.
There you go.
Indeed.
And then finally, one more. Tom had a lot of hobby, so now then the single guy, this guy. Your single guy.
And then I just did a standard banged out a quick navigator. So I didn't really do any conversions other than the standard Mohawk, but I thought the Mohawk actually looked good because of the lines from the beard and everything.
Yeah, sure. It creates a nice moon shape. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Is he a goblin under there secretly? Yeah.
So anyway, so just a couple fun quick things.
I just want to say I agree with Russ. It is better than using the stock model. I'd rather die to your custom Warp Lightning Vortex than to the real spell. Your spell is also much less annoying to set up because I actually greatly dislike the design of the Warp Lightning Vortex with all the little thingies shooting off the side. It actually makes it really annoying to just set up on the board because it just starts knocking figs over.
I have one more that I'm starting on. Right here. Can you see this?
Sure.
Do you see that?
Your Demon Fire. Yes. There you go.
Yeah. So he's coming.
That's your backup, just in case the Warp Lightning Vortex goes south. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And so Hill.
Yep. There you go.
Yep.
Yeah.
So there we go. So that'll be one of the next ones. So
Very nice.
What is that thing right now? 60 points? 70 points? 80 points?
80
it's
points.
80. It's the
They're
same
both
cost.
somehow they're both 80 points for now.
It's the same cost.
Interesting.
All right. And yes, Tom, your army is gorgeous. I agree with Russ. He said it was good to see it at Adepticon, and I agree. And we all can't have Adepticon come back soon enough. I miss seeing everybody's armies so much, like just being able to walk around and see armies set up and on the tables.
Yeah.
Ugh. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. For my hobby time, I got a couple Chaos Chariots done. 2 out of the 3 for my what, I don't remember what the name of the box is. The box that comes with 3 chariots. It's whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I got 2 of them done. I ended up saving one because it's just kind of good to have an extra chariot around. I've got some things I might want to do with it, but I'm just kind of holding out. So I got 2 of these done. And that finishes up, I think, everything I want for my Crimson Cabal. This was like the last thing because now I can run full Ruinbringer in the way that I want to run it, which is the Mortal Wound Impact all-mounted cav list. Which is really fun because then your chariot impacts and does its own mortal wounds and then does the Ruinbringer mortal wounds and, good times. Who doesn't love that? And then now it's time this weekend I'll be working on these guys right here, which is the Dread Pageant. We're getting right into the Slaanesh Mortals. So I've got these 4 guys put together and primed up. Sadly, these were sent to me, and you know who you were, so thank you very much. I deeply appreciate this. And unfortunately, this dude's little spear snapped off. Like, it was just missing. I don't know where it went.
Yeah.
But who cares? Que sera, that's okay. Because I happen to have this extra big axe because I converted different weapons for all of the chariot drivers, and I really like the big axe from the back of the chariot, so I just gave him big axe. So now Dread Pageant guy has a big axe.
Nice.
He's got axe for you. And so that's my hobby time as well. I haven't been able to paint as much this week because I'm working on a bunch of like video related stuff. Like this is a week of like deep diving videos, and I'm trying to get a bunch of stuff recorded and make a couple big special videos that'll be coming out over the next couple months. So I've been trying to dive into that. Also, just in case, I don't know if John's watching right now, but John Ninus, if you're watching, or if you watch this later, don't think that you can just do a rap intro to my videos on your podcast, and I'm not going to do something with that. So, that's all I'll say. Okay? So, there we go. All
Which
right.
podcast?
Trapped Under Plastic. Yeah, John and Scott do a podcast called Trapped Under Plastic, and it's fantastic. So,
Nice.
at any rate, okay. So, Tom, may I just say how excited and happy I am to see all of your progress in the hobby. By the way, like this, you're painting a tremendous amount of stuff, and like this forward momentum is great.
It's funny because like I just had like a Battle Force box and a new KO getting started, and I just looked at it and I was like, what are the lists that I'm wanting to run? What do I have? What do I not have? And so now I'm like at absurd numbers. Like I'm gonna be at like 24 riggers, 24 Sky Wardens. I'm gonna have like 50 Thunderers maybe painted up. So yeah.
Wow.
So it's gonna be silly talk. So but that's what I'm working on. So and I'm just gonna kind of push through. And again, I love the army. Like even if I'm not like I'm not putting it on the table a whole lot or whatever. So. Yeah.
Well, there'll certainly be a chance to. Your points will go back up slightly. You'll still have plenty of good, viable lists, and then you'll be bulletproof for a long time. So,
right.
There you go. All
right.
right.
I'll gravitate to the things that their points don't go up.
Yeah, sure. Or whatever the right list is. You've got all the options now. I mean, that's what happens when you get an army you really love. I calced it out, and I've got the last units I finished for Slaanesh took me to 7,500 points of Slaanesh, right? So I'm hoping the Mortals will get me over 10K. When you've got that, you can just run anything you want, like any consistency of anything you want, and it's great. Okay, cool beans. So with that, gentlemen, let's get to our main topic: the Daughters of Khaine post Broken Realms.
Indeed.
Okay. So, what I'm going to do here first is actually I'm just going to straight bring up one of these lists. Doom. We're not gonna talk directly about it, but I'm going to bring it up here on the screen, and we can get into it as we go through. Before we get into specific lists, I want to just have a conversation about, where we think Daughters of Khaine are at post FAQ, right? Pre FAQ. I apologize. Post Marathi, pre FAQ.
Yep.
My strong belief is that I don't think they're going to change that much in the FAQ. Okay.
You're saying points wise,
Yeah.
or you're saying ability wise?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay.
Yes. I think this army will basically remain the same throughout the FAQ. I think there might be a little tiny adjustment here or there, but it will not be enough. Like, the army's been out for a long time. They resisted making huge changes when it seemed to be the most egregious, right?
Right.
I can't see now being the time that suddenly they curveball us. Okay?
Yeah. I mean, I hear that.
So, to me, it's going to be, my guess is it'll be fine. Now, at the same time, what I want to talk about is I feel that Daughters of Khaine in Broken Realms Marathi was one of the most successful rules, expansions, packs, whatever we want to say, that they introduced. Okay?
Amen.
In that book, it opened up new play elements that are competitive without being broken. We can talk about whether or not we think they're as good as like just sort of using some elements of the original and putting it into the existing architecture. That's all fine. I don't care. The point's not that it had to be better than what was there before. In fact, I wouldn't have wanted it to be, quite honestly. But it opened up new, good, and competitive avenues. It made basically all of the units in the army now viable. Right? Introduced a new... We got, at the same time, we happened to get these new unit, namely the Shadow Stalkers, which opens up as well interesting possibilities. To me, the Daughters of Khaine, without getting a new book, are in the best place they've been ever. Like, ever. Literally ever.
Okay. You're saying from a balance standpoint?
Yeah, I'm from an internal balance standpoint. I'm not talking external balance. I'm saying internal balance.
Yeah. Okay.
That doesn't mean they're perfect, or that we couldn't, that I couldn't see things continue to change around here or there. I'm saying this is the best they've ever been from an internal balance perspective.
Yeah, I think that's the case. This army, I've fallen in love with this army, and this is probably going to be the next army that I invest heavily into getting.
Nice.
It's an extraordinary. I mean, I was going to pull the trigger on it when it came out. It was close to, but the snake bows were pretty terrible, as we all knew at the time. And then, a snake heavy build wasn't going to be. It seemed like it was going to be hard to find that 3-2, having a good shot at 4-1 that I like to personally hang out in, and that's been fixed now. But it has incredible viable variety. The different profiles. It's got big, medium footprint, small footprint in terms of model size. It's just amazing. Yeah, I think this is one of the most exciting of any AOS factions that are out there right now in terms of variety, competitiveness, aesthetics, rules, how it plays. I'm really loving it.
Yeah, I completely agree. Tom, your 40,000 foot feeling right now?
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is that I still think that Hagnar is, for me, the go-to choice, but that could very easily change with an FAQ or an errata. But even then, I think there are viable, compelling, interesting options in the other spaces. And an errata to like bump up Kraith, for example, to a 5 and a 6. Something like that would be would make those things way more enticing, even with Hagnar being what Hagnar is. That's what I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, cool. So let's just do a little basic rundown. Just bring everybody up to speed, right? We'll be fast. Right? I'm sure most people have watched the Broken Realm show, but I want to make sure we're all on the same page with what's changed, right?
Right.
So, Marathi, you now have both Marathis on the table. So you have little Marathi or baby Marathi, and then Big Marathi, right? So
And Big Marathi hits like a Mack truck now.
yes,
Yeah.
and because of this, she is more expensive, but also very much worth her points. Her combined 600 points. You can't take one without the other. You buy one, you buy both. And the little one ends up, they share wounds. She can never take more than 3 wounds per turn now, period, under any circumstance. And she really gives you both utility and offense at the same time. Baby Marathi can be a really interesting pinning unit. She does a little bit of damage on her own. She's not a machine, but she can actually hit. Because she can't take more than 3 wounds, like, it doesn't matter. She's effectively this immune pinning piece. She's a good caster in the army. Has a very nice War Scroll spell that can deal decent damage. Always acts as the general. So her command ability is always potential and viable, and she can use it there, even if she's not actually the general. Which is, of course, she has the shoot twice or fight twice command ability. I mean, she is a total package. She's what you want in a guy.
Gives you another model for 12-inch reroll. Well, you don't really the charge, but like a run.
Yeah, sure.
You know, need a run of 6 or something. But you have another 12-inch or holier than 18 for the real ones to hit. It's great. Steed of Shadows is a really awesome trick, thanks to Jesse Gayhart, that I've learned about. In terms of Steed of Shadows on her, 16-inch move and fly helps with her pinning. She's got 3 spells, so you could do an endless spell, you know, an aggressive offensive endless spell, plus Black Horror Volgu. You can potentially dispel that endless spell and recast it, and still have another spell left for Black Horror Volgu. You know, bump up her offensive output on the spells. Yeah, those 2 models and how they play, it's so much fun.
Yeah,
and what they do on the table.
I would have never thought to take. Oh no! Like before, I had a non-Marathi list, but with the meta changed, I stuck with Marathi because of her unique tools. Now I would never think to make a dock list without Marathi ever.
She's very strong. I don't know if she's auto-include, but she's pretty close.
Yeah. I was going to say, we might want to look at a list or 2, or just talk later on about a list or 2 and what you can do outside of taking her. I mean, 600 points, so you can get quite a bit, but that'd be worth looking at, because you can get some pretty interesting lists without her.
You can get quite a bit, but I don't know if it's ever going to have the utility that she brings. Between all the, like I could see doing, like, if you were going to do a Har Quran without her, that makes sense. But but it's like for Doc, like I've tried a bunch of different permutations, and it just feels like I'm always leaving a tool, you know, off the table when I don't add her to the list.
Yeah. She really does not like debuffs, so you got to be careful with that. No. I mean, she is on base 3s and 3s. So I've been running her without the points to really like take a Hack Queen, because it's either Hack Queen or it's the screens, and Shadow Stalkers, in my opinion, are the most efficient screens right now. 100 points for 9 models as opposed to 120 for 10 models, or 80 points for 5 models. But then you're not really getting a sufficient screen in terms of wrapping or whatever. And of course they teleport. So, but got to be careful, because there are situations where she can go in and flub it. But in general, can hit like a truck.
Yeah. So the other things we got are, obviously, we got our new Cobra Kai, which was misprinted in the book as Xanthar Kai, but obviously it's actually Cobra Kai, is the name of the new temple we have, which is a mainly snake and harpy focused temple.
Strike hard, strike fast, no mercy, that kind of thing.
Yeah, correct. Which gives you a command ability to bump up attacks. Marathi herself can bump up snake attacks. The Iron Scale gives that got introduced through the Shadow and Pain box, who has the ability to make your snakes real fast, because they can run and charge, and they get a 2d6 run. I'm not going to count her. She could, like, technically, as printed, she can add +1 to attacks. It would be very rare, I think, you would actually be able to use that. I don't care. Her point is as a slingshot mechanism for your snakes. Like, that's why she's there.
Right.
And your sisters obviously got a lot better in the ability to shoot more between just their shots and Marathi, between what they shoot and how many times they shoot, and then being able to double tap with Marathi around.
It's impressive, the ranged output that you now can do with this army. Between Marathi spells, the stare or the gaze from the Shadow Queen, potentially a Medusa in a key spot, light up a big unit with a 10-inch, a dice per model, every 5 is immortal, and then those double tapping snake bows, amazing.
So
Especially especially in Calibron with that teleport and the threat.
Amazing
range.
how such a small change.
Yeah.
We
were talking about it. I mean, multiple times, but like a day or two before we saw it, or maybe a week before. Yeah, we were chatting about it on Facebook. Yeah, just that little change.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it's proof that sometimes things just need a small tweak, and they can actually be completely change the value of the unit. At the same time, we also got 3 new battalions, 2 of which were good, so that's exciting. So that's cool. And I mean, when you think about what that means, what this is all culminated in, right, is that you mentioned the Shadow Stalkers. We also got this really cool, interesting teleporting unit that can be chaff, that could actually be an offensive unit, even though it's capped rather small. I think it still actually can. If you hyper buff it, they will go full ham. So the important part here is you're looking at a book with, I think, some of really, really strong internal balance, because every unit in the army, you'll make a list that has it, maybe with the exception of Doomfire Warlocks being kind of the weird standout. I know Tom is still repping them. I know. Shut up, Tom.
Your damn mouth.
Okay. Didn't Ben Curry do well with like 10 Doomfire Warlocks at Blood and Glory last year? Or not last year, but the year before?
How about we just say the presence and place of Doomfire Warlocks remains controversial?
Sure, that's fair. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, what other unit can you get on a 4-up and give them a rerollable save from Cogs?
You can attempt that weird janky trick that wouldn't work, but yes, you can do it.
Like, give them a rerollable 4-up, rerollable 5-up.
No, that's very exciting in a meta with spell bombs everywhere that will just eat or be like, no, you don't have that Cogs, so please get that out of here. It's a great plan to pin your entire army to that.
Spell bombs, they don't last forever.
Sure, no, I understand. Look, I'm just talking, like, I'm saying they're the only questionable unit. To me, everything else has got play.
Yep, absolutely.
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Slaughter Queen on, reminder maybe to put a pin for later, the Slaughter Queen on foot in certain lists in terms of that command ability. Maybe stacking with Marathi Khaine command ability. Okay, well, that was another one that comes to mind as, I'm wondering if there's much to be said about taking her, because I don't see her in that many lists, the Slaughter Queen on foot.
No, she's terrible. Like, to me, if there's one miss, she is the miss. Because she just doesn't compete for her points with the Hag Queen.
Sure.
Because you're not going to push her into a unit to start chopping. You're just not. And so that,
Isn't one benefit of her command ability that you can do it in your opponent's hero phase?
Yeah, but why not? But why would you have her on foot? She has to be your general. And why would you have her on foot when I would rather have a Slaughter Cauldron?
Yeah, sure. Oh, she has to be the general to do that command ability? I should just pull it up while we're talking here and look at it. I haven't looked at it in a while.
All Doc command abilities work like that.
Yeah, that's historically been the problem with Doc, is that only your general can use their command ability. So she actually doesn't even have a command ability because she's not your general.
Legacy Doc command abilities work like that. The Iron Scale being a notable exception with her new one. Right.
Yeah, all right.
Right.
Old book. Okay.
Remember in AOS 1, you had to be the general to use a command ability. Remember that?
Right. Yeah.
That was a crazy time.
Okay.
Yeah.
That does mess that up.
Okay. Right. So, at any rate, let's break into some lists, because these lists are going to be the way we can talk about these. So one of the questions that was asked was, do we think that the new battalions are going to be usable in any temple? Yes, I do. I do think they'll be usable in any temple because they didn't print the restriction they normally print in the battalion text that says, you must be of this type of army to take this battalion, which they often which they usually print. By usually, I mean always printed.
The matched play chart over the fluff text.
Sure.
And the reason why is I would anticipate that testers and all that have those charts in the front of their faces way more than the fluff text. Who knows if that stuff was even in what was sent out to our testers, right?
For tonight, we're going to. That is, by the way, I think a question that they will answer in the FAQ, because I know like 50 people sent that question in, so I don't know how they'll not answer it. But regardless, we're just going to assume tonight the answer is yes, because I legitimately believe that's what it'll come down as. If we're wrong, hey, oops. But it's more interesting if you can take them in the existing temples, because then then the world becomes much more actual, interesting, and nuanced. So.
Yeah, and you're certainly not busting anything if you allow that.
Right.
In my opinion, it adds flavor and variety, but nothing's going to get broken.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree. Okay, so you want to take us through, Tyler? We're starting on your list here. Each of us made some lists.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Start on yours.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is not the one. When we get to Calibron, I'll probably mention Ben's the one that I've actually been playing, because I'm really excited about the Calibron list that I've been playing a little bit just as you go through it. But this Cobra Kai is actually it is I think exactly the list that Kron was running in that battle report I mentioned with Doom and Darkness the other week. So I don't think this is necessarily the best Cobra Kai list that you could write with Viperic Guard, but I think it's a good template that we can discuss.
Okay.
So, the core ability of the Zenthar Cobra Kai is Khaine's Essence. It gives you a +1 bravery characteristic of Melisai units and Kinnerai Harpies. So now your snakes are on bravery 9. And then the Melisai Iron Scale has a artifact from the original Doc book, Crown of Woes. I believe I'm actually not looking at it here. Is that what it's called? Crown of Woes?
Crown of Woe. Just Woe.
Okay, cool. I'm pulling
like Woe.
Crown of Woe. Right. So Crown of Woe, it has a way that you can get. It's either +1 bravery. I think it's +1 bravery or -1 bravery. I'm trying to find it here quickly while I'm talking about it. So you have Shadows, Blood Sigil, Iron Circlets. Here it is, right here. Crown of Woe. Subtract 1 from the bravery characteristic of enemy units within 7 of the bear. The first time the bear slays an enemy model, the range of this ability is increased to 14 inches for the remainder of the battle. So that synergizes well with, of course, all of this is leading up to synergizing well for Mindrazor.
Right.
So you start out on the base of bravery 9 on your snakes. That's going to be over a lot of units in the game, most units in the game. More, I don't know. There's a lot of chaos out there and death. But so Mindrazor, if you are over the bravery of the unit that you're attacking, you not only get the additional Ren, but you get a point of additional damage. So that's enormous, on the melee snakes, going from 1 damage to 2 damage on the bucket of dice that you're going to be rolling with these units of 10 snakes in particular. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was. Do you guys have any other, in terms of other artifacts that you might put on the Melisai Iron Scale? I thought that was really interesting. I mean, maybe a +1 save, since you could put her in cover potentially.
Yeah, I mean, the Crown I think is an interesting pickup. I mean, the fun thing about Zenthar Kai is that most of the time you're going to end up with 3 artifacts. Right.
Yeah.
So like in your list, you couldn't actually take advantage of all of the artifacts you had, right? Because Zenthar Kai, one of the things that temple does is just give you a bonus artifact. So of any kind. So if you've got the reason I say 3 is obviously you start with 1. You're usually going to have a battalion, one of the 2 new good battalions, plus the Zenthar Kai item, and so that actually does some interesting possibilities to take something like the Crown, because previously your 2 artifacts you would take every time would be the Shadowstone first, and then the Iron Circlet. Like those are your 2 artifacts. They're the only 2 you talked about. Done. End of story. Right? That you had 2 artifacts in the list. These are the 2 you take. Everything else you might as well just put it in the bin. Right.
Yep.
But the Shimon item that reduces Red Neg 1 to 0 can actually be kind of interesting on her, just to keep her alive a little bit longer against various and sundry Rend 1 shooting, which there is a fair amount of around. I mean, there's not a huge amount of items that naturally fit on her, to be completely honest, but that was
Amulet of Darkfire would allow you to ignore mortal wounds from spells on her on a 4-up.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe situational might be nice. Keep her alive a little bit longer. But I mean, she's only rocking, I think, 6 wounds with a 5 base save. So I wasn't really keen on the idea of leaning into trying to keep her alive, but more just looking, for that one opportunity, to set up that combo if I need to go into a unit and make sure I'm over the bravery of that unit to get the extra damage on that unit of 10 snakes with tapping the command ability for the 2d6 run, etc. to get that key charge off. Thought that could be interesting. But yeah, there's not exactly, or I don't know of any incredible artifact that really stands out that you put on her. The command traits that you've got to take, not that interesting. It's the least interesting part of the Kobukai Temple. Curse of the Bloody Hand. At the end of the combat phase, roll the dice for each enemy unit within 3 of the general. On a 5+, that unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. And I'm realizing now that, did I screw? Let's see. Let me pull the list up. I hope I didn't screw that list up. The list should have no. Okay, cool. Yeah, that is Medusa. That has the Curse of the Bloody Hand. All right, cool. Yeah. So yeah, Shadowstone, real ones to cast, and you get a bonus of +1 to cast. Mm-hmm. So the Withering is 18-inch range, +1 to wound. I believe that is combat only. I have to double check that. And so, and then Mind Rays, of course, on Wrath of Khaine. 2x10 Blood Sisters, 5 Blood Sisters, and then the 10 Blood Stalkers that you're going to be double tapping with the Wrath of Khaine command ability for those up to 40 shots, 24-inch range, 32-inch threat range with 8-inch move. Amazing output. Yeah, I've been running those a ton in Calibron. And then, the Viperic Guard, like Vince, you said, you get essentially an extra command point. So you're basically looking
it's basically worth 2 command points, right? Because you're getting 1 for taking the battalion, and then once a game you can use a command ability without spending a command point. So
what is 100%. Your? Oh, never mind.
Yep. No. Well, it's with the obvious issue with this list is it doesn't have any screens. You're using snakes for
zero
so,
screens.
Yeah,
that's why. Yeah. That's why it's just a kind of a template for our discussion.
Disagree. I disagree, Tom, fully. It has, in fact, the best screen in the game, which is Marathi standing in the middle of your army in front of everything, and then the Shadow Queen standing in front of your army and everything, going, sure. Right. Come get some. Because, like, who cares? Come get some.
Yeah.
You put them out front on the line, and you have them basically block up and be like, you want to get in on this? Because guess what? I'll take your whole army, and you know what it's going to look like at the end of this for me? 3 wounds. I don't give a good God how many people you attack me with. I don't care what you're bringing. I don't care if you can catapult 2,000 points into me. 3 wounds, homie. So I hope it's worth it. Like, between her and the 5 sisters, which is clearly what you're going to do, you're going to build a little fence post, right? You're going to sit the 2 of them out there, and then in the middle it's going to be 5 little snakes. That's your line.
Yeah.
Yeah, Vince, when we get to Calibron, maybe I sent you some deployment images from TTS. Then maybe we could reference a couple of those, because more or less it gets at what you're talking about right there, but with an actual unit of 9 Shadow Stalkers for more proper screen.
Yeah.
But no, meaning that how the army often functions, at least in my experience on the table, is exactly that. Yeah, you put Wrath of Khaine, 2 Marathis on the line, maybe zoning out a little bit of space, not necessarily right by each other, but on the line generally. And then your 24-inch shooting range, 32-inch threat range on your bows, so they can be quite a bit back and still have a really good threat range. And then with that 2d6 run and still charge, you can put those 10s, even potentially the 2x10 snakes, fairly far back. So you could, sometimes in my experience so far, at least personally, I think a lot of people, when they look at a snake army, they think it's an aggro army that has to be in the opponent's space in like round 1 with, your snakes, your blood sisters. That's not how I've been finding it plays often. It operates in waves. So of course the Shadow Queen, 1 or both, certainly the Shadow Queen and maybe Wrath of Khaine, are the early pin threat pieces,
right?
Especially the Shadow Queen. And then the bows are doing really good early work. In Calibron, it's even easier because you can teleport them around. If you have a unit of Shadow Stalkers, they can teleport. So they're a screening teleport. Wherever you're teleporting your bows, you then teleport your Shadow Stalkers to screen them off. But I've been finding the Blood Sisters are more of a second wave in that army.
Yep.
And then I'm keeping them far back. So you could definitely do that. Positioning, placement, charge, making sure you're outside of threat ranges, charge ranges. It's obviously really critical with a glass cannon army like this. But the command ability helps you with that from the Melo side.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you effectively got a 4 hammer build here, right? In
Yeah,
the Shadow Queen, and then the 2 tenors of Sisters and the tenor of Stalkers, right?
yeah.
And the options, like we'll talk about options with the list. Like you mentioned, the lack of chaff, Tom, or whatever. Certainly, like one of your other options could be, you could reduce a hammer to up your chaff and utility, right? Like you
Yeah.
could get rid of 10 of the Blood Sisters, the melee
I
snakes,
already thought about it.
for like
Yeah.
10 sisters or like 10 sisters of slaughter, by the way, is what I meant. I apologize, I should be clear, because those are
Yeah.
also battle line. We have to fill that battle line requirement.
Yep.
And then drop a
Right.
hag queen in as well, or something like that, right? Like there are
Yep.
That's, other choices you can make here.
Vince, that
Yeah.
is exactly what I was thinking about.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
100%.
Right.
I favor 4 hammers. I do think that like 4 hammers mean I the reason I like 4 hammers in dock is because it means everything's a threat, and your enemy
Mhm.
often will be very hard pressed to answer 4 hammers. Most
Mhm.
armies don't have 4 hammer answers. They just
Mhm.
don't.
Mhm.
Okay.
Right.
And what that means is that like you will just overwhelm them.
Right.
And like utility and chaff and stuff like that, it's good, but in the end, it's a delaying factor. Now, I'm not saying one is better than the other. I don't know which one's better than the other. Probably having the chaff and control in the Hag Queen is better, maybe.
Mhm.
But again, it's both. I think both are valid choices, right? Especially when you've got this weird situation where one of your hammers, you are guaranteed to get at least 2 full battle rounds of play out of it, like minimum. You cannot get less, right?
Right. Yeah, this is also a 2-drop list, so you're going to be out-dropping
Right.
most folks, and yeah, that's really important for glass cannon armies, or at least my opinion, to have that flexibility. Again, that helps you in how you're deploying, and you can be conservatively or aggressively and know what you're going to do in terms of giving that turn away or taking it. I think a lot of times you want to be able to give it away and then just deploy to make sure you're. What's that?
3-drop.
Oh, is it a 3-drop?
Yeah.
Uh,
You can't fit all 4 units of snakes into the Viperic Guard.
Right.
Viperic Guard
It's-
caps at 3 snake units.
yeah. So that would be you could fit 3 snake units. And then
Oh no,
everything
you're right.
else
It is
fits
2 drops.
into-
I forgot because the Iron Scale can't
Yep.
fit in there along with the Medusa. I apologize. You're
Right.
right. I'm wrong. It is 2-drop. Yes, for the extra snake unit. I'm sorry. I forgot that the Iron Scale and the Bloodwrack Medusa could both
Right.
go in Vampire Guard. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, so you guys, so Tom, you think that a Hag Queen? So what specifically? What would you change? What would you remove? And what would you add?
For me, just given my play style, I would probably
Yeah.
drop a Blood Sister. I would pick up a 10 Sisters of Slaughter, so that gives you a real chaff line with shields, so they'll bounce back the mortals when they get hit on 6s. And then I would probably do a Hag Queen, which then lets you utilize that last item, and it gives gives you a prayer as well.
Yeah.
And it gives you the reroll wounds on a unit.
Sure.
Yeah.
And like, we cannot underestimate the power of Catechism of Murder in a snake army. Like
Right.
Catechism is bonkers when it goes off on
Yeah,
snakes.
like Catechism on, like, if you have this may be exaggerating. I would need to do the math, but having like 10 sisters versus 5 sisters backed by a Hag Queen.
Yeah.
Like, I'd be interested to see the damage with the reroll wounds and the Catechism of Murder.
Sure.
I think that you're talking similar numbers, and you're picking up a chaff unit.
Mm-hmm.
And a unit, like, what I hate about this list is I don't feel like there's any units that I look at here that I can just leave on an objective.
Mm-hmm.
To me, all of them seem to need to be doing something, except maybe the 5 Blood Sisters, right? Like, because Morathi Kane, you're going to want her. Sure, her position is going to be dependent upon where you want your Bloodstalkers, because she needs to accompany them, and so that's not that the fighting may not always be where the objectives are. And so, like, I prefer to have a little bit of chaff that I can leave on objectives if I need to.
Right.
But that's just me.
Sure.
Yeah. Now, in terms of what you were talking about there, you wouldn't have the points. So would you drop? I mean, so let's say you drop 5 blood. You meaning you would drop
the tenor
Blood
of
Sisters?
sisters? Yeah, you drop a tenor.
Okay.
You'd kill
You
one of
drop
your
a tenor.
hammers and go to a 3-hammer
Gotcha.
list, and then that lets you buy a 10-pack of Sisters of Slaughter and a Hag Queen. And then
Hag Queen.
off the top of my head, I don't remember what the delta would be, but you could also.
You'd still have a 60 points.
280. Yeah.
Yeah.
280, 120. Yeah, you'd have 60 points.
Right. So you could buy a command point as well, or
You're
whatever.
you're at 3 drops. You could buy a command point. You could buy an endless spell. There's some really good, like the Geminids. Might be a really. They're 60, right?
Okay.
Yeah, 60.
Okay.
Yeah. So Geminids might be a really interesting answer here. I don't know. Like I would, you could do Prismatic Palisade and do the wall.
Mm-hmm.
You could potentially get the Palisade and another 30. So you could do the Palisade and like the burning skull. So you could have both a defensive and an offensive that would give reroll 1s on your shooters.
Sure, especially for I mean the key being is that the burning head or whatever is going to be really valuable, especially in earlier parts of the game if you can just launch it out there.
Right.
Somebody comes forward, giving reroll 1s is just like on all of your shooting turns is going to be really potent if it sits around, and like if you end up dinging a little bit here or there, who cares? Like you can have Marathi most of the time just be near it fighting and not care, right? Because she's already going to take 3 wounds from whatever she's fighting, so who cares if something dings her for a couple mortals?
Yeah, yeah, I'm a big fan of that endless spell for new doc. Yeah, with snakes and Wrathi. Yeah.
What is Hag Queen on Cauldron again?
290.
290.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Too expensive is the answer by 10 points. She ain't going down. They're like somebody did that math and was like, no.
So like I said, I haven't really gotten many games in with Cobra Kai. When I look at it, I don't find it as compelling, just sort of from a preferred play style and honestly competitiveness. I can't really quite figure out how to make it as competitive in terms of snake heavy. Like that's personally what I'm interested in, just snake heavy. And regardless of whether that's not the strongest, obviously. I mean, Hagnar is still, in my opinion at least, if you're running snake heavy Calibron with Marathi, and you're comparing that to, let's say, old Hagnar, but updating it with 10 Bloodstalkers. I think that updated Hagnar with 10 Bloodstalkers is still quite a bit more competitive, and a number of variations thereof. But yeah, what are you guys' thoughts in terms of how to make this compelling? With Cobra Kai? It's tricky. Yeah.
So again, I'm thinking hyper competitive here, and my concern is what does this army do when it squares off against Skaven, or like a mixed Skaven where they have clouds of clan rats with strong shooting.
Yeah.
Or KO, like a non-monolithic KO. Like a lot of people have gotten really hung up on the ironclad with 20 thunderers in there. Because it's seen some success. But if you have a true like divided shooting KO list where you have like 3 centers of teleporting power that can all like condense fire or split up, like this becomes a lot more problematic because Marathi, like the Shadow Queen, can't be everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, okay, so to answer your first question is, you would go hard into them. You'd go into the paint against Skaven.
Right.
Like you would just take.
You have to.
Sure, and you'll blow them away. Like I think that's a terrible matchup for Skaven, and I'll tell you why. Because the Stalkers, one, you're gonna outdrop them, like that's guaranteed. Okay. Sure. Like because Skaven are like a million billion drops. Okay, you're 2. So, okay, you're fighting Skaven. Let's say they have giant clouds of clan rats, like full on giant clouds of clan rats. Okay. You're that are all immune to battle shock. Obvi. We'll just give them blanket battle shock immunity because that's usually what
there's enough tools. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. The Stalkers, like, what's the ranged output coming from is the question, right? If it's something like Gisele's, who cares?
Right.
You kill them first turn. They're just dead. Right. Like, those are just dead instantly from your Stalkers, right? If it's something like Storm Fiends...
Well, maybe.
I'm not sure I feel that.
No, I don't agree with that because they can be backboarded on a hole and then teleport.
Their range is not such... Your effective threat range with your Stalkers, right?
It's like 32.
32,
yeah.
Right.
Like, could they maybe, in some circumstances...
They put their shooting on a gnaw hole, and then they can teleport to any other gnaw hole.
Yeah, it's really easy to... It's so easy to zone out gnaw holes. It's so easy.
Not with this list.
Even with this list, I've played... Like, dude, who's played Skaven more here, do you think? Just take a quick vote. Okay. Zoning out a gnaw hole in enemy territory is as easy as walking 1 fig near it. You set the Shadow Queen or somebody like that near the thing, They can't teleport to it. One Fig can zone out a null hole. Because you have to be set up wholly within 6 and 9 away from an enemy. That's pretty easy math to shut off. Okay?
I'm happy if you take your Shadow Queen and park it near one of my 3 null holes.
Yeah, sure.
That means I'm going to pick apart the rest of your... I'm going to teleport to the other null hole and shoot off most of your stuff.
No, because again, that's just I you should play Skaven sometimes because believe me when I say null holes don't work like you think they work.
Okay.
Here's what I'll say. Any of these, both of those units of Blood Sisters will blow a unit of Clan Rats off the table in one round. Like, no issue. Those cease existing. You'll cut through them like they're not even, like, they'll do 40 wounds that. The average damage out of this unit when it's hyped, like, assuming you use the command ability and assuming they're near Marathi, right?
Yeah, wholly within 18 if Marathi's in combat, basically, plus 1 attack from that, and plus 1 attack from the command ability. Yeah.
I mean, they'll, like, 40 wounds, 40 damages against a 5-up save is, like, that isn't even trying. That unit ceases existing, probably without Mind Razor. But if they have Mind Razor, good God, that unit blew up 3 times with Mind Razor, okay?
Yeah.
So, like, round first engagement, all of their chaff is dead. Like, that's it. You could blow up multiple 40 packs of Clan Rats in one turn. And, like, and again,
but they're not going to position so that you can do that.
Take a Skaven shooting. They have to. That's what Clan Rats do. They stand up front and wait.
Right, but they could stretch a single unit across. You're only going to hit 1 unit when you come in.
You're thinking about layers, Tom. Like, they probably have multiple layers. Yeah,
and you have like an acolyte unit to
sure. Maybe not. Those kinds of shootings. This is a ridiculous tangent we went on. Those kinds of shooting Skaven don't have 4 countershot hammers. They're going to take out your stuff. That's the problem. They don't do enough back, you'll chew them before they chew you. That's what's going to happen.
Okay.
You're going to lose stuff, but they'll lose stuff faster. That would be my argument. So, anyways, this is a way down deep rabbit hole. The point is that yes, there's a couple different ways to do this. And by the way, that's why I favor the 4 hammers, because the list you talked about, Tom, with like the Hag Queen and the Sisters, would be weaker against a list like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So yes, I agree. Of course they'll layer, but again, still, I hope they have enough room to really, really layer. And sometimes it's hard because those snakes are all going to charge and then pile in 3 inches and have a decent reach. Like they can hit 5 inches behind the line. So if the first unit blows it up and then the second unit piles in 3 and then reaches 2 more, they can still you better have a heck of a gap.
Right. That's true. Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Yeah.
Now,
Vince, I know that you got a game in. Well, we're talking about Cobra Kai. So
I've gotten 2 games in with Cobra Kai so far.
Yeah, you had an interesting list. I can't remember what was your list. You had a Cauldron, I think. Slaughter and Cauldron.
I did. I legitimately don't remember now, but I can show you something close in Calibron. I've played it both under there, but yes, I like a Slaughter Queen on Cauldron. The key is I don't use the Stalkers, which buys me a lot of points. I'm not using any. I'm not using any bow snakes.
Right. Okay.
I didn't use the Iron Scale, and I don't use the bow snakes. So there you go. Because I don't have any bow snakes built. So, but I have tons of melee snakes.
Right. Gotcha. In summary, personally, I find Cobra Kai more difficult to figure out how to play competitively in terms of if you're pushing for, let's say, 4-1, which again is my bias. That's what I'm looking for. Yeah, like it's got a lot of bad matchups. It's very glass cannony, of course. Not a lot of bodies. Yeah, it can hit hard, but it's going to get blown up by most anything in the game pretty quickly, apart from Wrath of Khaine and Shadow Queen. But fun, interesting. I think with good positioning. Very careful play, thoughtful play. You can do some work, but yeah, it's gonna. I'm not sure how you get around the fact that this kind of list, even with a couple modifications, is still gonna have a lot of bad matchups.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So let me take you through a Calibron list that I have, and then I think Tom, you sent me a Calibron list as well, right?
No, I did Hagnard.
Oh, okay. Oh, you sent me a Calibron list as well. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, we all had lists. I'm just trying to remember who's whose. So that's fine. Here's let me bring this up, make it big enough. There we go. Hopefully you guys will see that in a minute, but I'll walk everybody through. So here's my take on Calibron. Okay, so again, Viperic Guard. I stand behind Viperic Guard. I like Calibron as the build with this. I think it's hot. I've always been repping Calibron. Day one. The only I've played Daughters in tournaments, and the only thing I've ever played with my Daughters in tournaments is Calibron.
Yeah.
Okay.
So much fun.
Because
ironically, I've ranked higher in playing Calibron in tournaments than Hagnar.
And you did with Hagnar, yeah. Well, yeah, that says
'Cause
something, Tom.
I took second at the 1K with Calibron.
Sure. All right, so here's the basic list. Bloodrack Medusa, Marathi Khaine, and the Shadow Queen, Obvi. Slaughter Queen on Cauldron. I love the Slaughter Queen on Cauldron. I stand behind her. I think she's just a badass.
She's a wrecking
I
ball.
think she's like she is so mean.
When
you juice her all the way up, oh god, does she go brutal?
Well,
she will brutalize people.
Like, what I loved about her was that, like, people just saw her as a buffing piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Because
she
they see it, they're like,
slams in doing 30 to 40 damage, and you're like, what?
What?
Yeah.
Right. You realize you're like, oh, that's hammer number 2. Got it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I didn't look at the book closely when it came out that closely, and then when picking them up and running into it's like, holy cow, yeah, what that model can do.
So here I've got so Marathi, the Slaughter Queen on Cauldron, she's absolutely one of my hammers, along with the Shadow Queen, right? And then 10 sisters, and then all sisters apparently from my battle line, but 10 blood sisters, 10 blood sisters, and 10 sisters of slaughter, right? And obviously the Bloodrack Medusa is the general. I didn't bother to include the command trait, but it's the whatever, it's the Calibron thing. I just didn't select it on the worst roll builder because I'm lazy, because it's a set command trait, so I wasn't saying anything. At any rate, again, I like this because you have the I have everything I need. Right, I've got the 2 key artifacts that we talked about, Shadowstone and Circlet. I've got Catechism of Murder, which I put on the Slaughter Queen because she's going to be up, like wheeling and dealing closer. Like she's the behind the main push line or whatever, right?
Yep.
She wants to be up there with the kind of sisters on each side of her, effectively.
What's
and then I've got
base move on the Slaughter Queen of Cauldron?
6. She's not fast, but that's fine.
I was thinking it's really okay.
Yeah, she's not fast, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Like she's gonna run in the first turns or whatever. So
sure, yeah.
With a reroll.
With reroll ones, that's right. And that I give the Hag Queen Crimson Rejuvenation. I think this is a less popular secondary prayer, but I actually very much stand behind this prayer. Like it's the heal, by the way, for those who aren't familiar. So it's just like a D3 heal. To me, the value of it is I use
keeping that Slaughter Queen up.
Correct. Yeah. Or also like if the Bloodrack Medusa gets splash wounded, I don't want something to accidentally pick her off, so the Hag Queen can turn around. Because like generally it'll be Slaughter Queen, Hag Queen, Bloodrack. It's kind of like sort of they're kind of all in this like line in between the snakes on both sides. It's this kind of cloud moving forward, right? While Marathi's off on her own doing her nonsense. And the like just having the Hag Queen have Crimson Rejuve so I can, pray and heal the necessary things, especially since they can hurt themselves when they pray, right? We can't forget about that. Like you can hurt yourself when you pray.
Yep.
So, yeah. At any rate, I like this. It does give you the chaff line of a single group of, 10 Sisters of Slaughter with the bucklers, as Tom mentioned, which, yes, is always, like, I like Sisters with the bucklers for chaff. I think, stand behind it. They're good. And by the way, in a pinch, you can actually turn all your buffs on them and have them go, like, do some decent damage. They're not, like, a super hammer. But if you've got nothing else going on, and there's, like, an easy unit you're going to be able to pile 6 on, why not drop the buffs on them, pile in, and just watch them blow something up? Like, they'll do decent damage.
Right. They still have 20 attacks.
Right.
Yeah.
On 3s and 4s. Like, yeah.
Yep. Okay. Let's see. And yeah, that's the list. It's in Calibron. I did put Steed of Shadows on Marathi Khaine because I really like all the movement potential. So Marathi Khaine can be like zipping around, pinning people really fast. Like I'm not afraid to run her out, to race her ahead of the army on Steed and just pin a unit in place. Right?
Right.
Because again, who cares? She's not going to die. And then I've got... And then obviously you've got Calibron to just move stuff around where you need it. Now I have no shooters with Calibron, but so it's always you're rolling a hard 9 if you're trying to drop for a charge. That's not actually how I end up using Calibron most of the time. Like sure, sometimes you'll take that play just to threaten and make them pull their army apart. Like it's not a bad play, but more often than not, it's just to get perfect positioning.
Right.
It's still a 4 hammer. It's still a 4 hammer army, like Shadow Queen, Slaughter Queen, Sisters.
Yep.
It's a cool list. I really like it. Yeah, it looks fun.
It's the downside is of course 92 wounds.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how we roll.
Yeah.
Almost every dock list I've ever built is like in that range of
Very
wounds. So
Slanesh like
yeah,
list.
this is the armies I play. They're things with like 80 to 100 wounds that you just better make it work. So
Yeah.
you know, this is the kind of version I prefer. So, but yeah, there you go.
Looks very familiar.
Coach said I worry this list is too hero heavy and so few units. It is hero heavy, but again, I think my experience is in a 4-hammer army, you can afford to be hero heavy because they won't have units alive to sit on points because you will murder them. Like because everything you have is death if it touches them. Right?
Right.
So it's like you, and ostensibly you're wanting to, again, I always think of this in a wave pattern, like just as you mentioned, like I'm going to take the sisters out front, they're going to absorb something, I'm going to super buff and wham through 1 or 2 units with the first blood sisters, the second blood sisters, the shadow queen, and I'm going to hopefully wave over them, and then the little heroes are in back, hopefully cleaning points as my ocean watches forward. But yeah, it's tough. I mean, you're on a razor's edge. Like if somebody has a lot of like big splash damage, like things I would not want to fight with this would be like, you know, garbage croak Seraphon. Like that's a nightmare. That's just, you know, well, I guess I lose then, you know, is kind of what the answer is there. So,
yeah. You want to pull up mine real quick?
Yeah, let's talk about your Calibron list. Absolutely. Let me bring that up. Okay, I hate that I have to make this thing hide every time, but we will make this big. Sorry, there we go.
I'm gonna have to give your list a run. That looks really fun. Yeah, it's pretty awesome running the 4-hammers. I've done that a little bit.
Yeah,
I haven't tried out the Queen of Culture yet.
You've really got to think about the way you move and position stuff because it is so unit light. You know, you can't. Every dock army I've ever played is a Knife's Edge army. I only play Knife's Edge dock, where it's like, okay, if you make one wrong move, you lose. Yeah. That's how I like to play dock, where you're just this precision scalpel that has to like. Yeah. You nick an artery, it's all over, right? Like you have to cut. Exactly.
Nah, I prefer just waves upon waves of units where I can just lose Marathi at the top of one or bottom of one and not even notice.
Right. So real quick, but as we get to your list, which is up on the screen now, but real quick, Zanai says, is Marathi worth playing over 600 points of witches or something similar? I still don't see it. My argument would be yes, 1,000%. The utility that she brings to the table is completely unique. Her ability to not die is so strong. Like she has an ability that no other model in the game can replicate. In certain scenarios, she can almost auto win you the game. Like on say places of arcane power, but also on things like focal or not focal point. Well, focal points is like for behemoths, but you know things that matter for heroes staying alive. Scorch, where you have leaders.
You know what the best thing about arcane power, the place of arcane power, is you can put her on 2 points.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100%. So I mean, like it's not just that though. It's also like the utility she brings to it is so strong. Her spellcasting is very welcome. She's a great person to be mind razoring or you know whatever. She her long range damage spell is really good, like the shadowy blob of Ugu or whatever can pop out big damage, like
36 inches.
Yeah, she's almost everything all at once. She's a hammer, an anvil, and utility all in one package.
Yep, she does everything you need for 600 points.
Yeah, and she unsticks problems, right? Between like making things fight twice. Or you know what I mean by fight twice. Not yes. Her brand of fight twice.
Right.
So good. Oh.
Okay.
Real quickly as
take
an
us through your Calibron list.
Yeah, okay. I can come back to that later. Yeah, maybe we can come back later if I remember and just give an example of a list from my friend Jesse, which I thought was a really interesting list of showing what you can do without Marathi in terms of
I think all of our lists, we didn't talk about this, but I think all of our lists feature Marathi because she has a strong tool. But I mean, you can do Doc without her. Yeah. But at any rate.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so a lot of similarities here. Yeah, so Calibron, Wrath Khaine, Sea of Shadows for the tricks that you talked about, Shadow Queen, Bloodrock Medusa, Shadowstone, Mind Razor, and then 10 Blood Sisters, 2x5 Blood Sisters, 10 Bloodstalkers, 5 Bloodstalkers, 9 Shadow Stalkers for the screen or teleport, late game, if I don't necessarily need a screen for some reason in the game. And then the Temple Nest Battalion, which didn't really see a whole lot because the snake bows were not very good at the time. But seeing a little bit more now. So what that battalion does, obviously it allows you to get your drops really low. So this is a 4-drop list. Yeah, because in Calibron you get additional snakes units that you can put into the Temple Nest. So every time your opponent is attacking the Blood Sisters, Bloodstalkers, or the Medusa in combat, and they roll a 1 to hit, they will take a mortal wound at the end of their attacks, which has been nice. I mean, it's not amazing, but it's been nice.
It's damage. It will surprise people because it'll be there's a lot of rerolling 1s in the game. It will make people, one of the things that's interesting that'll happen is people will start using their command points in different ways. Like they'll save their command points for all out assault to reroll 1s to hit or whatever, you know. So
see, you know what I like? Free damage.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Like, that's what it is.
Yeah. I've had a game where someone was rolling a bucket of dice with a big unit at me, and they rolled a lot of 1s. So yeah, sure, sounds good. And then the special sauce, the Ether Void Pendulum, which I'm in love with now. Never really found a useful list that I wrote in the 4 or 5 years of AOS, or however many years the Malign Sorcery has been around. But it is perfect for Marathi Kane, either teleporting with Calibron or Seed of Shadows. So teleport round 1, you give your opponent top of 1, you go bottom of 1, teleport Wrathy Kane 9 inches away from your opponent. The pendulum goes up to 14 inches essentially. So you could hit multiple units with D6 mortal wounds. It's units that you fly over or that you're within an inch of when it lands. So I've done a lot of really good damage with that on top of the Black Horror. And then let's say you win priority for round 2. Cool. The pendulum is not going to hurt you because of course it only goes one direction. And then you can potentially dispel it with a +1 to dispel, recast it again. Wrathy Kane is up there in front of you. Yeah, so it can put out some really nice damage if you can get the damn thing off. Certainly this list can fall apart if you're going against a true spell bomb like Croak or Teclis and whatnot, because you can't get anything off. But so this list,
I will also say it's a really nice complement to your stalkers, right? Who are also pitching in mortal wounds. Like, it's a good way if you can plow that pendulum through some heroes. You might not kill them. That oftentimes the D6 isn't going to work out to give you sort of a 5 or a 6, right? But it then means that you can take your 5 Bloodstalkers if they're on 1 wound left and be like, okay, well, you're dead now.
Yeah,
Died.
100%.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. Vince, do you have those photos that I sent you of the deployment examples? Maybe I can run through this couple of those real quickly. There might be a way to talk through this list quickly.
Yeah, let's some of your pictures are a little crazy, Tyler, and will make people's heads explode.
Sure. All right.
Okay, so I'm not gonna use every one of them, but I thought this one would be interesting. So I just brought up Calibron Deployment 1, which is the one where you're facing I think Kairos you're facing a Legion of Chaos Ascendant army on the other side of the table in a fairly standard-esque deployment situation, right? Like a 24-inch apart, 12 off the middle line, lengthways kind of setup. It'll show on your screen here in just a moment. And so
so I think in this one it has there it is. All right, awesome. So I thought this might be useful just in terms of us discussing a few things with deployment. And so in this one going Legion of Chaos Ascendant, a list that has a bunch of tricks, like teleporting with the Skitter Leap, a Vermin Lord Corruptor with 10 attacks that is doing D3 mortal wounds for every 5 up in combat, and casting a spell after it's teleported that blows up your unit, doing a mortal wound for every 4 up it rolls, and then Kairos with Spell Portal that's chucking 6 mortal wounds. It's a good list. It's a pretty solid Legion of Chaos Ascendant list. So I think it had some Kadai.
Yeah, there are Kadai in this list too. So just full on nonsense.
Yeah, absolutely. I've often been deploying some games you don't need to do this, but often, sometimes out of laziness, the Bloodstalkers, the unit of 10 Bloodstalkers that are usually going to be the ones taking that CP from Wrathy Kane's command ability in the hero phase with a double tap up to 40 shots, essentially, as long as they're full up, 20 in the hero phase, 20 in the shooting phase, just deploying them in the back of the board. And then they're my teleport unit.
Right.
And just wherever, yeah, usually trying to give my opponent first turn because I'm a 4-drop or 3-drop if I'm not taking the Shadow Stalkers for the screen. And then wherever they go, often the Shadow Stalkers are then going as a teleport screen in front of them. So I've at least got one layer. And then sometimes I'll look to try to use one of the 5 snakes, the 5 snakes, as a second layer. Because you can get, 1-inch coherency, 40 millimeter bases. You can get a decent wrap with your 10 Bloodstalkers, especially with 10 Bloodstalkers in like a 3x3 layout, 24-inch range, teleport. You can do that pretty well. But yeah, so then both Marathis usually almost always on the line, as you mentioned, Vince. Sometimes Marathi Khaine may have to be a little off the line in terms of zoning out space because you don't have a lot of units. But yeah, and then almost always like the unit of 10 Blood Sisters, I've been, like we talked about earlier, using them as a second wave. So they're usually staying, like somewhere in the middle of the board, staying away from edges, staying away from backboard. Just they're the safety, that later on utility piece to go where needed. 8-inch move, rear wants to charge by round 2. Good ability in terms of threat range. They can also be teleported. Almost always keeping the Blood Rack Medusa. Like my Blood Rack Medusa's only died once in all of like a dozen games that I played.
It's another benefit to high hammer lists is that people need to be focusing on your threat, and they don't have time to jack-jaw around with your Blood Rack Medusa, right? Like, sure, would they love to kill her? Absolutely, but unfortunately, these 10 snakes seem to be murdering me right now. I really got to focus on this problem. It's like having 100%. A hangnail on one hand and having your other hand chopped off. Well, I better focus on this problem first.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And and then with Calibron against shooting, I mean, other than like Lumineth pumping 60, whatever shots, looking for 5s, mortal wounds, other than that, don't need line of sight. Other than that kind of silliness, in general, you're looking at a -2 to hit. Calibron -1, lookout sir -1. It helps keep her up. And I haven't played any real heavy shooting lists, which even with Calibron could be a problem with this. 100 wounds, glass cannon, efficiency. Like Tom, I think the kind of 3 teleport, centers of power, threats, KO list that you're talking about would be difficult, as opposed to the 20 Thunderers in a boat, where I'd be looking, that's in one spot. You could potentially count whatever, it's going to blow up part of your army, but then you charge with the rest of your army.
I think that's the weaker KO list, as an aside.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But no, it's been amazingly good. Like this first time really running a glass cannon of this nature, and just a little impressed. Like just how it's going up against strong lists.
I want to tell a quick side story here, folks, which is this. The side story is this: a couple years back, when I was oftentimes after a tournament that I attend with Tyler, I'll call Tyler and we'll chat on as I'm driving my 9-hour drive home or whatever, however far I have to drive for the tournament. Tyler and I will chat for a couple hours just about our experience in the tournament.
Couple hours, like freaking 5 hours.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. It's great. It's a good time.
It's a long drive.
Absolutely. And so, a couple years back, Tyler had been running Stormcast for a while, and you'd run Sylvaneth for a long, long time, right? That was kind of your main thing. Yeah. And I said, and you were kind of like exhausted and a little frustrated, and with your Sylvaneth or whatever. And I said, what the problem is, Tyler? You're playing these armies that require like way too much intense thinking and positioning and this kind of crap. You need to get like an Iron Jaws style army that's all about hammers and just getting into people and doing and just coming in Miley Cyrus style like a wrecking ball, right? Absolutely. And I'm glad to see you finally have gone that direction. And it's snakes, not Iron Jaws, but it's a similar principle.
Yeah, I called you. We talked a few days ago, and I'm like, I should have listened to you. And then you told me the parable of Cassandra.
Yes.
Cassandra Boy.
Yes.
Absolutely. But one way of saying, it feels this list to me feels like the very definition of a 3-2 pushing for a 4-1 with good play, decent matchups, not getting a string of shooting, hard counters, blah blah blah. But even then, you got the -1 with Calibron, help keep you up a little bit. It's got incredible damage output. You've got to be very careful with positioning. Like you mentioned earlier, if you have those 10 Blood Sisters in a spot that they get caught out, they're going to get blown up.
Right.
Or like I found this out against Archeon. I had some poor positioning against Archeon. Wasn't paying attention, and he was my second layer of units was inside 3 inches of him. He double activated with Chaos Lord and bye like 22 units of 10 snakes.
Yeah, sure,
You know,
absolutely.
little things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But,
all right, so
yeah.
let me answer a couple questions here. Somebody said, "Are those Storm Fiends up top?" No, those are Kadai Destroyers. It's a Legion of Asgore unit that is like a demon, so it can go into the Legion of Chaos Ascendant, since it can be any demons. And then somebody said, "What program is this?" It's Tabletop Simulator. Yes, so it's a thing you can download. You can get it off Steam or whatever. It's all the assets are already there in the game. There's lots of cool stuff you can do for, like, obviously you didn't have to make all these. These are all just assets that are around. There's different maps that people have made, the various scenarios and stuff like that. So it's really nice. And if you want to see it in action, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and I think Fridays. I think that's right. Rob, Honest Wargamer Rob, has been doing breakfast battles where he's actually streaming a TTS AOS game. So, yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
and I agree with Russ, who said that something to be said for keeping your decisions simple, less complex, still nuanced and important, but less to miss, get wrong. Then I really like Beast Claw for that. Yeah, I agree.
100%.
Yep.
Yeah, man. Yeah, Beast Claw is another good example. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's when I was just getting frustrated with Lumineth. It's like Lumineth is an extraordinary book, but it felt too much like Sylvaneth. And yeah,
there's a lot of some armies have a high mental tax. Like, we don't talk about it often as a concept in the game, but it's something I definitely feel like. I favor armies that have a lower mental tax, right? I don't want to be remembering literally a million things, especially chain things, like activate a thing here and then a thing later at the end of that phase or in a separate phase happens. The more of that starts stacking up, right? And then, or target a thing here, and then if somebody's within this exact range, you've got, like, whenever you're managing multiple Holy Within bubbles and focusing on, like, there's some armies that just really have a lot of that going on, and it's tough. Anyway. Okay, Tom, we haven't looked at one of your lists yet, so let's do
fine.
it.
Can you hear me fine?
Yeah, I can tell you're fine. Your headset died, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
That's fine. I know if you charge it, it'll be full in like 5 minutes because you've told me a million times. So my headset's awesome. Okay. All right.
I was hoping it would actually be charged by the time they got to me, but it's fine.
That's all right. Here we go. All right, let's bring up Tom's Hagnar list. Yes, that's right. See, here's the trick, folks. Let me explain something to you. I want to really explain something just for a moment.
Why we're better people than some?
Correct. Yeah. That's exactly what we're going to talk about. Yes. You see, Tyler and I used this wonderful, amazing free program that Tony P runs, obviously. Fantastic, incredible Warhammer hero, hero of the community, and called War Scroll Builder, which is just free for everybody on the GW website. It's one of my favorite tools that they have. It's amazing. Please never take it away. I love it. It makes playing my game so fun and easy and stress-free to make armies. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, GW, for having it. And then there's Tom, who just has this, whatever's going on here. Whatever this situation is, he's just like, I've said, why don't you use War Scroll Builder? He's like, I don't want to learn it. I'm like, learn it? What are you talking about?
It has nothing to do with learning it. It has to do everything with how I do my permutations of lists. And so, like, I have, like, a notepad on my phone and on my computer for armies. And I just have, like, iterations, like tens of iterations where I copy paste previous lists, delete units, add units, play with points. And I just can't do that on War Scroll Builder in the same way.
Yeah.
So Tom's wrong, but anyways, go ahead, Tom. Take us through your list.
So anyways, so here we go. So I went Hagnar, and actually I'm the only one without a battalion here. So I went the other direction.
Yep.
Okay. Because I went with I'll go 100, I'll go what I went with 10 drops, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 drops.
Nope. Tom froze.
Because I'm just
slowed down. There he is. Okay, he's back.
Yeah, sorry. So I'm running a 4-hammer list as well. With chaff and shooting.
Sure.
Because what I'm running is, so I have the Slaughter Queen on Cauldron as my general with Iron Circuit. We've seen that. She'll have I'm blanking. Catechism of Murder.
Yeah, she'll have Catechism, sure, of course.
Yeah, I didn't have that out there. She'll have Catechism. I have the backup Buffy. Hag Queen.
Slaughter Queen and Cauldron would be the general. Wouldn't she have Blessing of Khaine?
Yeah. You're right. Sorry, she has Blessing of Khaine. The Hag Queen has Catacomb. Correct.
Yeah. You know what's super neat? If you built this in
Shut
Builder, you can just assign those prayers and spells and stuff.
Shut up. Keep moving. Okay. And then Marathi, Khaine, and Shadow Queen, I didn't split their points because it's 600. It's for one unit. Mind Razor on Marathi because she is my only wizard in this list, so that's one of the differences. The reason why I went with only one wizard is because I felt like in the Spelldom world that we're in, it is simply too high of a risk to have too many other wizards.
Okay.
So I only ran her with Mind Razor. Mind Razor is the icing; it's not the essential.
Sure.
And then I have my good old trusty 30 witches with shields, because they are just a monster of offense and defense. 2 Sisters of Slaughter with shields, so I have 2 screens there. Mm-hmm. I have 10 Bloodstalkers that are going to hang out with Marathi Khaine. And she's going to make them shoot twice, and so they're a hammer that can actually put their damage wherever it needs to be on the table.
Sure.
And then 9 Shadow Stalkers for teleporting, and then because I can be outdropped, I have a command point that I can either use for Battle Shock immunity on those 30 witches in the event that they get, like, somebody goes full on into them and alphas me, or I can save it and burn it on any of the other things, double shooting or any of those.
Yeah. It's a beautiful list. Like this kind, I wrote a couple of similar lists as we talked, Tom, and I think we went through a couple of iterations. One is the question of Hag Queen on Cauldron or Slaughter Queen, which, some of the trade-offs, you're losing out on the second sippy cup, you're losing out on a little offensive power with the Slaughter Queen, you're gaining a few more points to where you could upgrade to Morgwaith to flop off some wounds, a little bit of extra durability on the Hag Queen on foot against chip damage. So yeah, what are your thoughts on? But I think it just shows, like, just aesthetically and variety wise, how you can build. This is probably a 4-1 pushing 5-0 list.
Yeah, I think so. Because what this list has that I haven't seen in the other lists is answers to everything.
Yeah.
Because this list has, it's a 4-hero list, right? That's also a 4-hammer list that has 2 screens and a teleporting threatening objective unit.
Sure.
It also has range damage. And so, like, this is my version of, like, yes, you can have it all still.
Yeah.
In fact, you can actually have real shooting now with Daughters of Khaine.
Right.
You thought Daughters were terrible before. Guess what? You can have a 30 block backed by a Slaughter, a Queen on Cauldron, and then Bloodsucker shooting over top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mobility is the big issue with this list. The hilarity of this is that, it's not really an issue because everybody runs in charges. But, like, this is, like, in all honesty, when I was looking at the meta and, like, thinking towards NashCon at the end, middle of this year, hopefully, if it happens, like, I really had to come to terms with, like, do I run my KO, which I haven't actually gotten to take to NashCon at all? Or do I just paint up, literally, paint up 9 Shadow Stalkers,
right.
9 Shadow Stalkers, 10 Bloodstalkers, and call it a day.
Right.
Yeah.
Because, like, this list does all of it.
Sure.
The only thing I would actually like more of is I would have loved to have fit in a second, or to bump the Shadow Stalkers to 18. So that I had a teleporting hammer.
Yeah, I agree. 18, it's crazy how actually effective 18 Shadow Stalkers can be. It doesn't, you look at it, and by the way, I don't think often the right answer is to teleport them in to try to lay the combat. The key is you're teleporting them out when you don't want them, when they've got into something you don't want them into and you need them somewhere else.
Yeah.
Or you need to call them back to get buffs to then send them in again the round after that, right?
Send them in somewhere else, yeah.
Yep.
So, and the only way that I would do that if I wanted to is I would drop the 30 witches down to 20.
Yeah.
Because the reality is that sometimes 30 witches is just too many.
Yeah, but I'll tell you why I don't like that plan in this list. Okay, like, I get what you're saying, but I'll tell you why I think 30 you have to have. Because to me, the challenge with this kind of a Hagnar build is that you've got to have you got to have long tails.
Yeah.
Okay? Because you need to keep people in the 7-inch range of the
cauldron.
The cauldron, right? Which means usually you're running some kind of ridiculous tail, right? Now, this will be the thing that changes, obviously, this tail nonsense. If they ever get a new book. Or
It'll
whatever.
be wholly within 14, probably.
Right, exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and that will play very differently, because oftentimes you'll see people have, like, basically 16 mind-razored witches fighting, which is more than enough to handle the unit, and then 14 witches just going...
all the way back.
Stretching all the way back.
Yeah,
And
because it's still a 1.0 book.
Yeah, because you'll often need to have, like, 2 or 3 witches tailing into the zone. You don't want to risk it for the biscuit where one is just like towing into the 7-inch in case your casualties are slightly higher than you expected and you've got to pull from the back of the line, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Like, it's a pretty predictable damage amount because so much of your damage mitigation is unchangeable. You know, like you're oftentimes just on like 5 up, 5 up, 5 up is oftentimes what you end up rolling in this army or something.
Yep.
And so. And
I mean,
obviously, even against high rend, it's still at minimum 5 up, 5 up, right? So
yeah, my preferred approach is actually, like, I hear that, Vince, is to actually run this as a 3-hammer list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what I mean by that is you shove the witches and the cauldron down somebody's throat.
No, I understand. I mean, I think that the interesting part about Hagnar is, like, I do agree that this is probably the most competitive list we've seen. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And honestly, it's because it doesn't rely on the 10 Blood Sisters, which still have a wound to point, challenge, right? Like, it still doesn't have it's not, they're about the same cost as 30 witches, and you're just not getting the same mileage out of that, right?
Well, I mean, I think the key with it is that they may have the same offense, maybe.
Probably all else equal, they're pretty close. Yeah,
but
the trick is they're 10 bodies and 10 less wounds and
1 more save. Well, I mean, not technically.
It's basically the same save.
Well, no, because they're
the snakes are 5 up all the time. You're 5 up in combat.
Yeah.
You're both going to take the cauldron the same, right?
Yep.
That's why I said basically the same save. So, like, the trick is you're still getting 20 more bodies and 10 more wounds out of the 30 witches, right? Which just in general often means you have
and
more
bounce
durability.
back of mortals on 6s.
Sure. Now, I think people underestimate the snake mortal wound touch.
Sure.
The crystal touch. I think people look at that and don't care about it as much because it happens at the end of combat. I have found that to be so unbelievably valuable because I'll often just I'll charge and I'll wrap heroes and then attack a unit. Because again, you've got a big 2-inch reach on your stabby stick, right? So you can actually reach over the top of your girls, and then I'll just I'll stab and blow up the unit, and then I'll have enough snakes, because the snakes all get to touch to just blow up the hero, right? Yeah. And like, who cares? The hero swings on me first. I'm like, oh no, don't make your 4 3 and 3 neg 1 rend 1 damage attacks. Whatever will I do? And then they're just going to be like, okay, maybe I lost a snake, and then they turn and go and just melt him into stone.
Yep.
But no, I agree. This is the most competitive because it has the most versatility of what we've seen. But that being said, it's also Hagnar, which means.
Well, I mean, but you got to think, like, Hagnar is it's the go-to temple. Like, it's the Hammers of Sigmar or whatever. Yeah. So, like, it's gonna, like, those things will often edge out the other stuff just because they're, like, incentivized that direction with all the heroes. Obviously, KO is an exception to this because the KO, no one has ever run competitively the KO thing ever. But, most of the time, the named temple is, the main one is.
It's where Marathi became a god. Yeah, I get it. I know. Yes.
I just love that. Yeah, that now there's more, again, aesthetic variety and playstyle variety. You've got some teleporting and you got some shooting to go along with your combat and pretty good durability.
Well, not some shooting.
Oh,
like,
no,
10 sisters double tapping is a hammer.
No,
like,
totally. 100%.
That's doing real damage at a 24-inch range.
Yeah,
32 inches.
Absolutely.
It's good.
Yeah, definitely.
This
another.
I love this list.
Do you think it's a big drop off going Hag Queen on Cauldron versus Slaughter, and then again, basically you're getting 40 extra points to put wherever you want? Like Morgwaith versus Hag Queen, or 40 points in the spells, or.
It is a significant damage drop.
Yeah.
Like, and the question is do you want this to be a hammer or not?
Yeah, I'm just thinking in terms of you've only got one sippy cup and it's on a 5-1 dude, 5-1 lady.
It's true. It's true. And you know what? If you're dumping attacks into that Hag Queen, I'm not even mad. Because she's going to be buried in the line.
Not even mad.
Neg 1 to hit. Like, she's neg 1 to hit, buried in the line, neg 1 to hit from shooting, and on a 5-up save. A 5-up.
I mean, keep in mind that the Slaughter Queen is also bringing that, additional command ability to bear, right?
Right.
Slaughter Queen of Cauldron still has the command ability, and because of her positioning, it means that you often aren't doing these like weird measurements where you're trying to make sure if you need to nail a long bomb charge that you pull Morathi Khaine out of position because she's back, sort of with the bow snakes or casting, and so if you're 30 witches or something or whoever needs to be way over here. Fine, who cares? The Slaughter Queen's going to be with them, and she can effectively do the same job for melee, right?
Right.
Because she can't make the bow snakes double tap, but she can make the melee people double tap.
And heaven forbid that Shadow Queen is in the bubble of both of them.
Sure.
Because a triple pile in on that girl.
Sure. I mean, obviously, yeah. The honestly, the challenge you've got is command points.
Yes. Yep.
That's where this list is going to be straining is under command points. You've got one to start, and that's cool beans. But
but you want to spend a lot of command points with this list.
Yeah,
you do. It is hungry, and you
Yep.
don't have the bonus from a battalion, and you don't have the extra from the Viperic Guard that we had in the other lists. I was starving in Viperic Guard. Both times I played Xanthar Kai, Cobra Kai, I went with that, and I bought an extra command point. Okay, so I had all the possible command points I could get, and I felt like somebody crawling across a desert, thirsty for water. I was so thirsty for command points because ultimately I submit to you that. By the way, this is why I love Invader Slanesh when I can have 10 command points.
Yeah.
Command points make you win the game. Okay, I will here, and here's why I say that. I do not mean because they activate powerful abilities printed on War Scrolls. Okay, I mean
it gives you options.
Yes, because ultimately what command points do is smooth out the randomness of the game. The more of them you have to use on every situation you need. Never fail a charge. Never run less than you need to. Always reroll ones to hit, and always be using the powerful things. If you're doing all of that stuff every turn, if you're an army that can run on that kind of an engine, where you're you can drop that many command points in a turn, then you'll tend to win because you've smoothed out the randomness, right?
Yeah.
How many games have you lost because you didn't quite get a far enough run to get in a position to where you needed to be? You dropped a critical charge, right? Or your roll went bad.
I mean, what I'll say is this, Vince. Alternatively, when I've run a very similar list to this, I normally spend 1 to 2 command points all game. Because this list doesn't, these lists don't need it for Battle Shock. They, most of the time, are not in combat in the hero phase.
I'm just saying, I'm not sure that would be the same now.
I agree, because you know what I'm going to want to do every turn? Double tap twice in the hero phase.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure, absolutely.
And so what that's going to mean is that every command point that I get from turn 1 on is going to be spent shooting.
Sure.
And so I agree. I'm going to want to spend them, and occasionally I'm going to need that auto charge set or auto run sets.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, exactly. Just as an example, I played the Smash Bat list this last weekend, which was very fun.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Smash
which is
Bat
super
is
command
awesome.
point heavy as well.
Oh my god, it's so crazy. It's so crazy.
Yeah.
I blew 6 command points in 1 round. Okay. Now,
you need them to double pile in. You need them to.
Everybody needed run and charge. Everybody's double piling in, right? It's just money. I'm just throwing cash out, right? Just throwing out that cash. But you know what the benefit of that was? I basically obliterated his army in 1 round. Super Smash Bat went in and did his Super Smash Bat thing. And then there was no more Tempest Eye army when I was done. He had 2 units left. So, like
Poor Dan.
indeed. But it was a great game. It was really fun. Like I was a bit worried when he opened up, but Smash Bat came through because Super Smash Bat is Super Smash Bat. At any rate, if only there was some good replacement Vargolf. Hey, if you've got an idea for a replacement Vargolf model that I haven't found yet, yes, I've checked Etsy. Yes, I've checked all the shops. If you have an idea for a different alternative.
Ben Johnson had a wonderful conversion. Did you see his?
What was his?
He did a Mega Boss using Vargolf wings.
I mean, it's interesting because it is on the right size base. It's funny you say that because I was using my Mega Bosses as my Smash Bats because we were both just proxying armies to test out. Because he showed up with a proxy army, and I was like, well, if you're in a proxy army, how about I proxy an army? And then nobody knows what the heck we're looking at.
Yep. Yeah.
Anyway.
So I think Ben, in that thread on Vargolf's on Twitter, he posted his, and it's a great looking with
check
the
it out.
wings.
I hadn't seen it yet. I'll go check it out. Good.
Yeah,
because he's about the right size.
But with the wings, I think
this is not what we're talking about. But the issue with the Vargolf sculpt is he's in this weird size space in between big monster and not a normal size thing. Like he's bigger than an ogre, but smaller than any of the centerpiece models. And there's just not that many alternatives out there. Okay, neither here nor there. All right, so back to Doc. Let's round this out, boys, because we can bring this to a close here. Is there anything else? I do agree. I think this is powerful. My point is, we didn't make a Drakey Ganeth list, but I honestly think you could make a pretty tight Drakey Ganeth list as well. I think the +1 to hit on the charge with snakes is really good.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It's putting your snakes on 2s, often rerolling 1s, depending on where you are in the game or the prayers you have, is insane. So I think that's a good mixed list. If you go Drakey Ganeth, you still probably want big. That's where I'd pull out a big block of Sisters of Slaughter or something like that, probably.
Yep. Well, that's what I was trying to go for with mine. Is I wanted to show a mixed list, right? That you can snakes now have a place, especially shooting snakes, in a standard witch list.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. One unit, I think, Tom, you especially are a fan of, we haven't talked about, is Life Takers. So, like a unit of 10 or 15.
I love Life Takers.
I just said the keyword. The keyword. Like Antu on TTS, really well-known, excellent player, maybe Finland. I can't remember where he's from. It's a Northern European country, I believe. He's been running Wrathy, Slaughter, Hack Queen on Cauldron, Hack Queen on Foot, and then 2x30 witches, 10 sisters, or vice versa, and then 10 life takers, 5 life takers, and and really nice list. You kind of using them again as a safety piece, beta threat, counter threat, second wave, buff them up. Really nice piece.
They're just a wonderful counter charge unit.
Yeah,
they're just such a really interesting unit.
Yeah. Their float ability is incredibly good. Okay.
Yep. They take buffs really well.
Yes, they do. 100%. And we should state that if you are wanting to run Cobra Kai, remember all the things that we've talked about buffing snakes also buffs the harpies. So the life takers are also getting +1 to bravery and can be getting +1 attack, and all that stuff is also harpies from Cobra Kai, right?
Yep.
So it's funny because before, I don't think any of us would have made a list without heart renders in it or life takers, right? And yet tonight, when I just said, and by the way, what I said before the show was we didn't talk. I just said, you take this, make a couple lists, you take this, I'll make this, and so on and so forth. Just sort of, we split up the temples, right? And I said, but if we had done that same exercise pre-Broken Realms, not a one of our lists wouldn't have had heart renders in it. Not a one. Right. And now zero, because they end up being the cut. Right. And in something like Calibron, especially if you have Shadow Stalkers, like the list you had, Tyler, I just don't think you care as much, right? Because you don't need to hold the thing in reserve and drop. You've got, between your own teleport and your Shadow Stalkers teleporting, you've got the threat, right?
Right. Absolutely.
But the life takers are such an interesting play because they can hit super duper hard, and the float is people underestimate the float.
And a tenor of those guys.
Yeah, which I don't think you can go bigger than 10. I just
is
don't.
like 160 points.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
crazy how cheap it is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you're
Like-
talking about potentially, or like 3 damage attacks or whatever,
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Pretty
man,
awesome.
talk about coming in like a wrecking ball. Like,
Yeah.
you're coming in like a unit of Kurnoth hunters. Let's be clear on the numbers here.
Mm-hmm. Swords, not sides,
Swords.
because everybody
Right.
should know that swords are the best.
Right.
Period.
And they like, with all of the buffs that they
Yeah.
like.
Well, they're way
Yeah.
better than Kurnoth Hunters for half the price.
But what I'm saying is they're on that large like base and doing similar comparable damage when
I
buffed.
gotcha.
Like, and they're 160 for 10 of those bad boys.
Yeah, shout out to Dane, who was the buddy who I rode with down to CanCon early last year, who was the highest placing dock person in CanCon, and he was running a tenor of life takers in his list, and he was calling people out. They did not expect the thunder that those things were bringing, So I mean they can get there.
And the Cauldron Guard, like, is a wonderful battalion. Like it's what I was before I cut. Like, that's what I would have been right here. But like the reason why I didn't run a battalion is because I didn't want to have to run like that 280 points I spent on Bloodstalkers would normally be spent on Life Takers.
Sure.
Right.
And by the way, I think this is the kind of stuff you would like. We could do a whole second round of lists, but without Marathi.
Yeah.
And Coach is pushing back on Danes because he said he's the only person running Doc at CanCon. That might be, but he was also like 15th place overall, Coach, in 220 people. Coach, where'd you finish, buddy? I don't know. At any rate, so
yeah, I'm staring at my friend Jesse's list here. Slaughter Queen and Cauldron, two hags on foot, Blood Rack Medusa with Mind Racer, 30 Sisters of Slaughter, 2x10 Witches, 20 Blood Sisters, and 10 Bloodstalkers. You got a range. Yeah, sure, you're not double tapping on the 10 Bloodstalkers, but still 20 shots, good number of wounds, 20 Blood Sisters, 30 Sisters. You still got 4 hammers, three melee hammers, and a decent semi-ranged hammer and 10 Bloodstalkers. Still got 2x10 Witches for screens, for whatever, 2 hags on foot. Yeah, that's a pretty good list. 139 wounds, 1970.
Yes, absolutely. It was absolutely, Coach. I hear you, brother. It's all good. I think what's interesting is if you don't use Marathi, what you buy yourself is the ability to get in all these other units, right? You can expand out your hero potential.
Yep.
Like you can make the move to have a second Hag Queen or to have Morgwaith's Coven or whatever, so you've got a more durable Hag Queen. We didn't talk about her, but she is a perfectly viable choice. Yeah. And like it's interesting because it gives you a much more durable Hag Queen, right? And
particularly for Hagnar.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hagnar keyworded, but yeah.
100%. Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. But I mean, that's not an issue. That's what I'm going to be running anyway.
Right.
But it gives you the option to do things like, a unit of Life Takers and 2 units of Heartrenders or something like that, right? Like all these things suddenly become possible where you just can go way more broad and versatile. You are losing the utility, but if you still got the Slaughter Queen on Cauldron, you still keep your melee double tapping.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, like if I sacked Marathi, I would probably sack Bloodstalkers as well.
Yeah, because I think she's what makes them worth it. Honest answer.
Yeah,
turns 20. Yeah, 20 shots.
And so at that point, I have 880 points to spend.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it's just so much. When we were talking about taking the Khainite Shadowstalkers, absolutely, you're going to roll 18 of those, right? Like you might do 2 units of 18 of those. Because those are really double those is actually 2 really interesting teleporting hammers for 200 points.
Well, yeah, I mean, what I would...
Yeah. Well,
what
real
I
quickly,
probably, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, what I would probably do is take this current list. If I scrap those 2 things, I would add the battalion back in. And that would give... And I would do a 10er and a 5er of whatever they're called. A 10er and 5er of
Blood Sisters.
No,
Life Takers.
Life Takers because they're in the battalion.
Yeah.
I would do I would bump my Shadowstalkers to 18.
Sure.
And then what I would probably actually do is upgrade my Hag Queen to a Hag Queen on Cauldron.
Sure. Sure.
And I think that I still have not spent all those points. So I would get the I would probably bump up one of my sisters to another 30 block of witches.
Sure.
That's in the battalion. And I would add the wizard with Shadowstone.
Sure. So the point is that like you can get a lot out of it, but and again, it's funny that I'm still looking at that going, I don't know,
I don't know, right?
Like
because Marathi's that good.
Yeah. It's interesting that those two things balance against each other, and I think actually what's the best. Here's my honest read on it. There is no best between those two.
Right.
And what's going to be the best is largely going to be based on the type of stuff that's doing well or is present in the meta, the types of lists you expect to face, and the types of the battle plans, the scenarios, right, that you're going to be going into. So, because that's ultimately going to say, like, what is the plan here? A lot more bodies and versatile and utility spread across the board and, spread out threat, or this one piece that can just dominate, right? And like there are different answers to that based on what you're up against and what the scenarios look like.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, for consideration, the Battle Mage with Wild Form for +2 to run and charge on like 18 Shadow Stalkers, or now I know like in a spell dom, going up against Croak, board wide, unbind, there's situations, but it's on a 5, and just Battle Mage backboard that Battle Mage. Shadow Stalkers in range. There you go. 7-up teleport.
Yeah, sure.
Reroll. Reroll once to charge.
Wild Form is really good. It's like it's a really good spell. So sure.
I was thinking about that with Calibron. Like 10 Blood Sisters or just 110 points. It's not cheap, but like a number list, you could probably find the points for that. And again, just backboard it with your teleport units.
Sure. Well, and the fact that you have run and charge units in your army also makes something that's +2 to run and charge much more viable. So yes.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Good. So there you go. That's Doc post Broken Realms Marathi. It's exciting. I think what's so great about it is that they managed to add so much to the army without making me go, oh well, now they just shot it into stratosphere of overpower.
Right.
Or something like that. Right. They really did a great job of adding interest, versatility, and bringing up the internal balance. To me, this is what I want to see Broken Realms doing. Right? This is where we should be. This should be the sort of platonic ideal we're aiming for with what Broken Realms can do, is increasing that internal balance. The more of that you do, I tend to be a believer that the more internal balance there is amongst all the armies, the more just the meta itself will be externally balanced. That's not completely true. There's obviously good exceptions to that, but I think regardless of that, people will be having more fun because they'll be running more lists that they want to run within the army they love. Right? So
what do you guys, in terms of, let's take Tom's list, let's kind of wrap that. In terms of external balance, is that list in a pretty good spot, or is it is that inbounds?
Yeah, I think so. Yes, it's high end of inbounds, but it's inbounds. I mean, ultimately, like I said, the only reasons it wouldn't be is because Hagnar is janky because it's built like an AOS 1 thing, right? If we rewrote Hagnar like an AOS 2 thing, then I would say then I have no issues.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's generally my sense as well. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
Awesome.
Well, everybody, hey, if you're out there watching, you're still with us. I should have said it earlier. I didn't say it in this show because I'm a bad person. But please hit the like button. You're supposed to say that earlier in the show. That's when I'm supposed to do it in between transitions, but I didn't. To make up for me being stupid, hit like for me being stupid. So, or hit like if you don't think I'm dumb. Either way, hit like because I didn't ask you to do that earlier and only now. Hit the like button. It helps other people find the show. It's as easy as clicking a little thumbs up, and it means the world to me and to all of us because it does help increase the engagement of everybody. So thank you, everyone. Tyler, absolute pleasure as always, brother.
Yeah, guys, it's been fun. Absolutely.
100%. For all of you out there watching, thank you so much for watching again. As always, We'll see you next Wednesday.